Chapter 1098, Forcefully Seize. Chapter 1098, Forcefully Seize. The sky was vivid and red with flames shooting up into the sky. The 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan's bark slowly cracked, revealing the hairline ice threads. The 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan had so many vines. After they were refined, there appeared countless ice blue threads that were magnificently beautiful silk fibers in a fulgent blue crystal hue. Those silky threads carried a faint soul energy fluctuation. They were magical, original, incipient grade materials. Shongying Yu's eyes were brilliant. Her face was filled with joy. She continued to burn the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan while taking out some rhombus crystals. The rhombus crystals looked like long, narrow eyes that flew out of her white hand, falling towards the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan. The lozenge crystals moved quietly, rolling the 100 Kalpa soul threads around like when people rolled fibers around a core and connected many fibers together. Watching the crystals rolling the 100 Kalpa soul thread, Shongying Yu's beautiful eyes were filled with thrill. She pulled herself together and tried to burn more vines. As she knew Shi Yang could come back at any minute, she hurried to finish the rattan to avoid Shi Yang's sudden attack. While hiding in the dark to observe Shi Yang and Shuo Zhao's battle, her attitude towards Shi Yang changed completely. When she first met Shi Yang, she didn't put him in her eyes because he had only first sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base. Before they had entered the ancient continent, she had made up her mind to not leave Shi Yang in peace. And she did that. As Shi Yang had proactively avoided her at first, she was more certain that Shi Yang's realm was low as well as his competence. This ancient continent had many high-level ethereal god realm experts, and Shi Yang was at the lowest level of the food chain. She thought that everybody could bully him. However, Shi Yang had beaten Shuo Zhao up. Of course, she knew that Shi Yang had used cunning tricks. He had ambushed Shuo Zhao first. Anyway, Shuo Zhao was defeated. Moreover, Shi Yang was cruel and malicious. Seeing that his first attack didn't finish the enemy, he had tried to eradicate Shuo Zhao with more attacks when Shuo Zhao was hurt severely. She realized that Shi Yang wasn't easy to deal with. While collecting the 100 Kalpa soul thread, Shongying Yu was vigilant and ready to counterattack in any minute. All of a sudden, her soul shivered in fear. Shongying Yu's face changed in fright. She looked gingerly and focused while lightning beams creeping on her graceful body like dragons. She looked like she had electric rings illuminating her body. A flow of cold and desolate aura flooded from everywhere and ran directly into her heart's and sea of consciousness. Shongying Yu was shaken. Inside her head arose a bloody, mountain-like word that said, "Die." It furiously barged on her sea of consciousness. That word "die" was bloody and carrying the energy of brutal, crazy, bloodthirsty feelings, which had struck her mind. She was baffled, and it was as if her soul had been smashed. Her energy was running like water overflowing the broken dike. Murderous intent intruded her brain, occupying her tier of power Upanishad and making her flustered. Boom, boom, boom. Lightning arose in her ethereal extent. Billions of lightning strikes directly drilled through her tier of power Upanishad and sea of consciousness to act on the word "die" and to counterattack the flooding negative emotions. Countless icicles were floating and stirring in the cold and dark sea in her ethereal extent. They sent the icy energy into her soul to wake it up. Her beautiful eyes sparkled. She touched her forehead. The ethereal extent made of billions of lightning strikes arose above her head and covered the entire vivid red sky. Lightning strikes turned into wild dragons, roaring and soaring bravely as if they wanted to destroy earth and heaven. This flaming piece of land appeared to have the lightning disaster, which could destruct the entire area. Thousands of massive electric dragons were roaring and fiercely plunging towards a young man who was sauntering from a distance. That young man was Shi Yang. He used the death power Upanishad with the negative emotions and intruded Shongying Yu's head. He knew that he would receive the most violent attack, but he had underestimated Shongying Yu. Seeing countless beams of lightning dashing over, his body felt like it had become a massive heart that throbbed grumblingly. The immortal demon blood in his body moved like liquid steel. It gave him a massive amount of energy. With this energy, he calmed his mind and generated a space barrier. Each ripple was a layer of space confinement. Shi Yang was making many hand seals and dozens of space-confining layers floated up. The massive lightning dragons stormed over and tried their best to tear and destroy the layers of space confinements. However, they slowed down. Lock. He lifted his head and pointed at the sea of fire where flames rolled torrentially from Shang Yingyu's secret treasures. Instantaneously, the flames were frozen and didn't dance anymore. Shi Yang's 10 fingers wiggled, pulling the rhombus crystals, which were taking the 100 Kalpa soul thread, towards him. Shi Yang had taken the spoils that Shang Yingyu had to work hard to get. Boom! A lightning rod tore the sky, lashing over from a far distance. Shi Yang's space barriers were ripped off in just a blink of an eye. The soul consciousness with space energy moved with trouble while Shi Yang's sea of consciousness was chaotic. The tier of powers Upanishad was shaking hard. Shi Yang felt like some small knives were giving him terrible pain and cutting his soul. Shi Yang's trembled, his face dark and cold. Worthy of your third sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base, an attack from Shang Yingyu's divine, lightning weapon had hurt him instantly. Many wisps of his soul consciousness were destroyed shortly, making his soul feeble for a moment. The power of a third sky of ethereal god realm warrior and her divine weapon piled up, which included the ethereal extent. Shi Yang couldn't bear the overwhelming attack. Hand back the 100 Kalpa soul thread. Shang Yingyu shivered and said through her gritted teeth. Billions of shadows of that lightning rod appeared above Shi Yang's head. It weaved and made a thick mesh net, putting pressure on him with the energy that could kill all kinds of creatures. Even an ordinary incipient god realm expert couldn't resist this strike. Warriors who could enter the ancient continent were all top famous ethereal god realm experts of the great star areas. Usually, they were at third sky of ethereal god realm, but sometimes, their powers surpassed their realms. Shang Yingyu was one of those warriors. She had a divine weapon too. When she struck her attack with her third sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base, the lethality was earth-shattering. Shi Yang's face darkened. Murderous aura gushed out from his body like a blood sea. The blood chi in his body could be compared to that of immemorial beasts that were extremely abundant. He was urging his immortal demon blood to transform to the immortal demon body. Shang Yingyu was so powerful. Dage, this woman is really strong, a voice thundered from a far distance. Then, they saw a giant gold hammer with a lot of spikes like a golden hedgehog fly towards them. After each second, the giant hammer's energy was doubled. The energy in that giant hammer, which was as big as a windmill, could blow off a small mineral star. Boom! The massive hammer fell like a meteor piercing through the atmosphere, hitting on the shadows of the lightning rod in the sky. The void was shattered when lightning beams and gold lights bloomed. The ground cracked and countless deep ditches appeared. A beefy man came in laughing. He wore golden armor which made him look like a heavenly guardian. The sharp metal chi emitted from his body, which could pierce through any rigid things of this world. Dage, it's the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan. The muscular guy blinked and laughed loudly, his voice like the sound of a big bell. Interesting. As Shang Yingyu was attacking Shi Yang, he had the option to wait for them. After the two of them were hurt, he could appear and clear the scene. However, he didn't do that. He had interfered when Shang Yingyu had urged her energy to the utmost. It seemed like the brawny man wanted to show off his tyrannical, brutal face. That man looked big and rough, but he wasn't too old. He had a stubborn and wild appearance. He stomped the ground grumblingly like an avalanche. He rose his hand and grabbed the gigantic hammer. He guffawed at Shang Yingyu. You're strong. I like strong girls. You're sick. Shang Yingyu scolded, her face cold. She turned to Shi Yang. Hand me that thing. If you don't blame me for what's going to happen. The 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan belongs to our brothers. We've found it, but we have some personal business that we haven't taken care of yet, said an elegant, handsome man while he was strolling toward them. Shi Yang felt funny as he didn't know whether to cry or smile. He looked at the brawny man appearing from nowhere and paused his energy accumulation. Then, Shi Yang watched the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan. After Shang Yingyu's fire had burned it down, the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan now existed in the form of many grey-blue threads fluttering around the area. At the area where the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan used to be, the ground was covered with many fulgent, sparkling silky fibers. They were the 100 Kalpa soul thread, which was releasing some faint soul energy fluctuations. The 100 Kalpa soul thread were thin and tiny. There were more than 10,000 fibers. Shang Ying had collected 1/5 of them, which Shi Yang had already stashed in his fantasy sky ring. There were still a lot of them on the ground. However, it wasn't easy to get them all. Recently, when he held the 100 Kalpa soul thread in his hand, his Tear of Powers Upanishad had some magical vibes that proved that the 100 Kalpa soul thread had some wonderful effects to the Tear of Powers Upanishads. Shi Yang paid more attention to the 100 Kalpa soul thread. There are still 4/5 of the 100 Kalpa soul thread. If you want, come take it. Shi Yang said calmly and shook his head at Shang Ying. You can't take things in my hands. If you want, you can take those remaining on the ground, but I'm sure you will struggle to get them. Nah, it's not true, said the beautiful man who had just arrived. Pausing for a while, he frowned. Someone can't hold it anymore. Just like a wisp of the departed spirit, he gloomily floated and bobbed towards the 100 Kalpa soul thread. A frightening pale halo expanded from his eyes as his aura was extremely dangerous. Someone is underground, the beefy man laughed indifferently. Well, it's funnier with more people. No matter how many come, that thing will belong to me and my Dage. Shi Yang frowned and glanced in a direction. He found a mud statue slowly emerge from a puddle on the ground with only a pair of cold eyes without human emotions. Chapter 1099, Soul Kalpa. Chapter 1099, Soul Kalpa. The mud statue was hidden inside the swamp. When Shi Yang and Shang Ying were fighting, it had started to collect the 100 Kalpa soul thread. When the unknown brothers came, the mud statue stopped for a while, but it couldn't hold its desire for a long time. It tried to collect more of the 100 Kalpa soul thread right after that. The way he was collecting the 100 Kalpa soul thread wasn't similar to Shang Ying's method. The mud statue opened his mouth to spurt out a muddy brook, which acted like a small, soft hand that grabbed the sparkling blue-eye silky threads and shoved them into his mouth. This mud statue seemed to have mastered the power of mud and sand, especially the powers of earth. As he was swallowing some of the 100 Kalpa soul thread, the amount of 100 Kalpa soul thread on the ground was reduced. The good-looking man aimed at him right after he made the first utterance with Shang Ying and Shi Yang. It was because the mud statue had high productivity in collecting the 100 Kalpa soul thread. If he had more time, there would be nothing left for those people to harvest. The good-looking man was not the only one who could feel something wrong. Shang Ying also gave up Shi Yang and dashed towards the mud statue, her face indignant. Only the brawny young man could still grin. He looked indifferent as if he had absolute belief in his big brother. Splosh, splosh, splosh. Strange but marvelous energy surged torrentially from the puddles around them. The immense grey energy of earth burst off like a divine brush that drew the giant hand that could shade the entire sky. That massive hand was made of wet mud and moist soil. It was the anger of the god of earth with earth power. Right when it appeared, the ground under people's feet shook violently. Everybody trembled hard. They felt their chests being hammered, making them feel like suffocating. Someone was using the power of earth and sending the vibes through the ground to enter people's souls. Apparently, the one who was using earth power was that mud statue. With a pair of cold and indifferent eyes, he glanced at the good-looking man who was dashing towards him. 6 gigantic hands like massive mountain ranges emerged with the palms facing the others and arms jutting directly from the ground. Their 5 fingers were grey with dust and tremendous power, which could even crush the entire mountain. 6 massive hands were moving in the swamp as if they had the soul. 30 fingers created the strange hand seal that seemed to seal this entire planet. The handsome man floated like a ghost. He squinted and beamed a faint smile. A fan appeared in his hand, which was neither made of gold nor jade. It was made of some unknown material. The exquisite drawings on the fan of the mountain and lakes were changing continually. Shortly after, the drawings on the fan were like thousands of flowers blooming inside a quiet valley. The drawings switched between mountainous areas to fairy-like castles. This fan was as magical as an ethereal extent. The changing images on the fan stopped. Eventually, clear blue rivers appeared on the fan, which was meandering like spirit snakes and elongating everywhere to unknown regions. When Shi Yang pulled himself together to watch, he didn't see the fan anymore. He saw heavenly blue rivers on the horizon of the swamp. Those heavenly rivers were several thousand meters long, and they were so crystal clear that he could even see their bottom, which had many shining rocks. It gave people a peaceful feeling in their souls. Boom! All of a sudden, the rivers interchanged, impressively pouring from the horizon. People could see heavenly rivers like blue ribbons powerfully shooting at the mountain like hands. A chain of tremors that could shake the mountain swarmed over. Shi Yang stood far from them but still saw his body shake hard. He was even blown away. Gradually, he couldn't see the area of that fierce battle anymore. He could only see the increasing earth-shaking energy fluctuations. Closing his eyes, Shi Yang sensed for a while. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes and dashed away resolutely. The realm and power of the mud statue and the good-looking man weren't something ordinary warriors could compare to. They weren't weaker than Shang Yingyu. They could be even stronger than her. He was at first sky of ethereal god realm. In Agate Star area, he dared to fight against an ordinary first sky of incipient god realm. However, the warriors in this area were all geniuses of the great star areas around the universe. Their real competences had even surpassed their realms. Shi Yang knew both the mud statue and the handsome man was as strong as him. Still, there were Shang Yingyu and the muscular man with his hammer who wasn't weaker than Shang Yingyu. The four people who were competing for the 100 Kalpa soul thread were all brilliant warriors. He didn't want to stir up this murky puddle. Making up his mind, he wasn't hesitant to leave. Flying like a dark light, Shi Yang glided over the swamp and got further away from that area. On this planet, the sea of consciousness was affected. They needed good eyesight to find the hiding enemy. Once he could go far enough, his opponents wouldn't be able to use the soul consciousness to lock his location or find him. He left silently, so when the other four found his aura disappear, he traveled a far distance already. Thus, he wasn't hurried. The ancient continent kept many marvelous treasures, and the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan wasn't the only original incipient grade materials. There were more awaiting him to find. He shouldn't risk his life so early. Shortly after, he left the battle site and moved gingerly towards the massive hole that the other had created before. His thoughts flickered. He took out the lozenge crystals with some of the beautiful ice blue 100 Kalpa soul thread. Blue light continued to sparkle from the crystals with the faint soul energy that had surprised people. Holding the book that Shang Chen had given him, he frowned and studied it carefully. After a while, his soul consciousness flickered again. The 100 Kalpa soul thread was the soul threads of the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan. It was somehow similar to the soul threads of the departed spirit jellyfish. However, their functions were different. According to Shang Chen's document, the 100 Kalpa soul thread could amend a soul altar. Warriors at a profound level could have their soul altar crack as a result of a serious damage. The soul was the basic foundation of a warrior, and the soul altar was where his essence, chi, spirit, and soul gathered. It was the most important thing. When the soul altar had cracks, the warrior would find it hard to increase his or her realm further. His or her power Upanishad would even shatter. When a warrior fell into bedevilment condition, his soul altar would be damaged or even end up collapsing. Taking the former pavilion masters of Potion and Tool Pavilion as examples, their soul altars collapsed as the result of their failures in refining and forging treasures. They had to turn into a flow of a drifting soul to survive, which vanished into the universe after some time. The 100 Kalpa soul thread could patch the cracks. If they had more 100 Kalpa soul thread, together with the other original incipient grade materials, they could rebuild a soul altar. It was the same as rebirthing. The warriors with soul altars all had a profound realm, but the 100 Kalpa soul thread was really precious to them as it could fix their soul altar. In the great star areas, the 100 Kalpa soul thread was a peculiarly rare item that was scarce and in high demand. It was the top treasure that many people had yearned for. The 100 Kalpa soul thread had another function. It could urge the natural Kalpa in the ethereal extent. It could make the powers Upanishad attack the ethereal extent to quench it, which would help warriors increase their usage of the abilities of their powers Upanishads. While the warriors were battling others, the ethereal extent could be a big help as it could change their powers Upanishad to increase their attacks and their overall competence. The ethereal extent was unrivaled and marvelous. Until now, nobody had explored all the mysterious abilities of it. The 100 kalpa soul thread took 100 years for a kalpa. And it would have a disaster for each kalpa. After 100 kalpa, it had lived for 10,000 years. At that time, the 100 kalpa ghost hand rattan could have intelligence. After each kalpa, it could generate some 100 kalpa soul thread. Thus, the 100 kalpa soul thread could also make the ethereal extent experience the kalpa, which would quench it and make it tougher. Shi Yang blinked. Dozens of fulgent soul threads on the lozenge crystals flew out and entered his eyes and his sea of consciousness. They traveled through the tier of power Upanishad to reach the ethereal extent. They were about to get into the ethereal extent. Shi Yang's ethereal extent had a big change. The starry sea inside his fantasy world suddenly had many lightning strikes, sharp wind blades, windstorm, weaving lights, and surging flames. All the powerful energies were burst out of the same time, wreaking havoc in his ethereal extent. They seemed to attempt to destroy his ethereal extent. Shi Yang's face changed. He didn't think much, but he found a murky pond. He entered and hid several thousand meters underground. Thunderbolts struck inside his ethereal extent while fire surged up to the sky. Wind blades and ice mountains also attacked everywhere. Countless attacks made of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, storm, ice, and lightning had struck Shi Yang's ethereal extent directly. It seemed to tear his sea of stars, causing an intense pain that almost broke Shi Yang's spirit. Taking a deep breath to gather his mind, Shi Yang used his space, death and life, and star powers Upanishads as the basic foundation to change and generate different abilities of the three powers Upanishad to resist the madly violent energies in his ethereal extent. This was a kalpa to Shi Yang's ethereal extent, also a quenching time of nature to his powers Upanishads he must undergo. The 100 kalpa soul thread could trigger the ethereal extent's kalpa to strictly train the soul. If he could get over this great challenge, his soul would be incredibly strong. His soul altar could transform and he could even reach the new realm. Initially, he came here to find the blue light that had given him a strange feeling. Because he had underestimated the power of the 100 kalpa soul thread, he had fallen into a passive situation that forced him to get underground to cultivate. However, the battle on the ground between Shong Yingyu and the others was so furious that they weren't free to mind him. Under the swamp, Shi Yang was covered in layers of wet, doughy mud like a ball. From time to time, that muddy ball shivered and released immense life energy fluctuation. Shi Yang's body didn't have a significant change, but his soul altar was changing dramatically as his ethereal extent was like a ruin that different energies were hitting hard and bringing deadly dangers. His thoughts changed. The brilliant galaxy ethereal extent gathered countless twinkling stars that created a star area, which vaguely looked like a bow and an arrow. It was so massive and imposing like a mountain, a river, or even a beast. That galaxy changed continually as if it wanted to showcase the marvelous power of nature. The star bow and arrow emerged, shooting out a vivid bright arrow that was made of many meteors. In just a blink, it crushed all the mountains and rivers in his ethereal extent. The star power Upanishad changed continuously by his thoughts, releasing incredible lethality. Shi Yang was focused and trying to learn the magical features of the power to catch a glimpse of the star power Upanishad. He wanted to use the star power Upanishad to withstand the kalpa of his ethereal extent and train his will. Chapter 1100, Break the Shackles. Chapter 1100, Break the Shackles. In the other corner, the peculiar man with mud covering his body suddenly sank into the ground. Disappearing with him was half of the amount of the 100 kalpa soul thread. 6 giant hands pressed down like imposing mountains that sent away the energy that could seal the entire sky. The shining rivers crossing the sky moved like sparkling chains with sharp auras that attempted to wrap the imposing hands. Thunderclaps echoed while a lightning rod danced in the middle of the sky. The beefy man had a large build and it was as tough as iron and steel. With the giant hammer in his hand, he grinned and stayed aside. He didn't want to join this battle, anyway. The good-looking man frowned and looked at the 6 imposing hands disappearing into the ground. He sensed for a while and then said, "This man is dangerous." "Dage, you can't hold him," shouted the muscular man. "He cultivates earth power Upanishad and he knows the surroundings well. His energy and power Upanishad can mingle with the muddy pond well. It's hard to force him out." The handsome man shook his head. "It's hard to deal with this man. Yeah, the warriors that come to the ancient continent this time are all top warriors of the big star areas. Dage, how about those 100 Kalpa soul threads?" The brawny man grinned. There were still many crystal clear 100 Kalpa soul threads covering the muddy pond, even after the mud statue had taken half. Perhaps it was why the handsome man didn't murder Shong Ying-yu. The remaining amount of the 100 Kalpa soul thread was glowing faintly. Shong Ying-yu was standing there with an icy countenance. Shong Ying-yu had a cold face as she was too indignant. She hated that she couldn't kill all the people here. She had found the 100 Kalpa ghost hand rattan first. But Shi Yang and Sho Jiao had bothered her too much. Shi Yang took a part of the 100 Kalpa soul thread and the mud statue took half of the remaining. There weren't many threads lying there. And the 2 mysterious brothers were gazing at them. Shong Ying-yu was so angry that she wanted to spit blood. The good-looking man rubbed his chin. He pondered for a while and then guffawed, "We will take half of them." The man holding the massive hammer was surprised. Shong Ying-yu was also astounded. "We will take half. Everyone who sees it should receive a share of it." "Leave some for her," said the man with a smile. The muscular man was surprised, but he didn't argue. He seemed annoyed, but he walked over to take half of the remaining 100 Kalpa soul thread. Then, he turned to the other man, "Dage? Let's go." The handsome man's eyes drilled at Shong Ying-yu. He said, "I'm Wu Feng. Please send my regards to your father. Tell him I miss him." Then, he and the muscular man and left. Wu Feng. Wu Feng, Shong Ying-yu was dumbstruck. She furrowed her bold brows and thought for a while. She discolored as if she recalled something. She looked fearful, indeed. "Dage, who is she? We could have killed her and taken all the 100 Kalpa soul thread. It's not your style." After they left, Wu Bai, the younger brother, shouted at his brother. "If we killed her, we would receive a lot of trouble later. We'd better stay away from trouble." The handsome man called Wu Feng felt funny. "Who is she?" "Shong Ying-yu. Never heard before. Kid, you've been grounded to cultivate year-round, so you don't know many things. Her father cultivates fate power Upanishad. He can touch the spiderweb of fate, which is really magical. Her mother also has a strong background. When I was out to experience, her father used to help me once. I owe him." "Dage, was it the time you got stuck in original God realm and couldn't break into ethereal God realm? He guided you that time?" "Yeah, that time." "Oh, you owe them a favor then. No wonder why you didn't kill her." After Shong Ying-yu had stashed away the leftover 100 Kalpa soul thread, her cold face got less tense. She took a deep breath and pondered for a while. She took out a rhombus mirror, which was made of the same material as the rhombus crystals she used to collect the 100 Kalpa soul thread. This mirror seemed to be able to contact the other crystals. A flow of icy breath was spread on the mirror. A white metal halo expanded and projected something blurry. She pulled the mirror close to her face to see. Her beautiful eyes brightened as she sneered. Well, you're having bad luck that you're undergoing the ethereal Kalpa at this moment." Just like a cold light, she quietly flew out of this place and headed in Shi Yang's direction. The murderous aura diffused from her soft body. 1 hour later. Shong Ying-yu wore a long water blue dress. Her cold face gazed at a murky puddle under her feet. She made an ice cube to be her foothold so she didn't need to step on the dirty water. Her picturesque brows twitched. A white ring on her wrist shook for a while. Then, many ice sheets were generated as thin as a blade. They were gloomy and cold with flashes of lightning. All of a sudden, they plunged down to the muddy pond. Swoosh! A barrier exploded. An ice blade was smashed and it caused an explosion. There was a barrier. Shong Ying-yu's eyes sparkled. More feather-thin icy blades appeared. They all thrust into the ground with a chilling aura. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Countless thunderbolts exploded. Under her energy, they all got underground and stirred up the entire area. Deep underground, Shi Yang was covered inside a big chunk of dried mud. He shivered all of a sudden. The co-soul flew out of his soul altar and floated up over the muddy puddle. Swish, swish, swish. The co-soul looked like a peculiar spirit flame. It was a multicolor fireball with magnificent life energy fluctuation. Abruptly, scorching flames flew out and moved in the sky, making a seething sea of fire. The fire of the origin burned all the wetland and mud around, causing them to crack. The thick earth and heaven energy of the ancient continent had become the body of that flame. It all congregated in a significant amount. Within seconds, the water-like dense earth and heaven energy gathered and created a misty body that covered the flaming soul. Boom, boom, boom. The block of energy as big as half a leaf fan with incredibly dense energy flowed towards Shang Yingyu. Lightning and the blocks of energy impacted and exploded. The ground was bombarded by shockwaves of the impacts. Shang Yingyu was frightened. The flaming soul that had flown out of Shi Yang's body could use the energy of this ancient continent at ease. With this power, it could create different violent attacks that had made Shang Yingyu struggle a lot. Shang Yingyu suddenly felt wrong. This man was the owner of the ancient continent. If he wasn't the master of the ancient continent, he wouldn't be able to mobilize the energy of the ancient continent and attack anyone as he pleased like this, right? Her fear made Shi Yang excited in thrill. His co-soul was the fused form of the origin and the heaven flames. It was the core of Grace Mainland, and Grace Mainland was one of the ancient continents, which came from the same origin as this ancient continent called Desolate. It was the reason why when his co-soul got out of his body, it had also got rid of the invisible shackles and was able to control the immense energy of this area. The co-soul could use the energy in his area to create mighty attacks and lock Shang Yingyu's commotion. Without the restraint of the body, Shi Yang let his co-soul fly out. It felt like a blind man had just got his sight back. When the host soul and the co-soul were still in his body, he couldn't sense the life energy around. It was like an invisible barrier that restricted him from using his soul consciousness to detect the other's commotions. It was a tough headache that everyone entered the ancient continent had to face. However, when his co-soul detached from his body, it seemed to break those shackles. It seemed like the co-soul was part of this ancient continent. Through the co-soul, he could simply sense the commotion of the surrounding 10,000 miles. The 10,000 miles around still consisted of immense swamps with many incredible existences. It wasn't like what he had observed before. Those life energy fluctuations were hiding in many corners or gathering in hordes. Shi Yang sensed for a while and had a conclusion. A part of warriors who had entered this ancient continent had joined hand. This finding astounded him. As they were all outstanding ethereal god realm warriors of the great star areas, facing even one was already a headache. If they joined hands, it would be a huge struggle for him. Boom! An earth and heaven energy punch, which was 1,000 meters big, forcefully struck Shang Yingyu and smashed her lightning power. The energy of the co-soul was reduced. Shi Yang immediately knew that the co-soul couldn't control the earth and heaven energy endlessly. It required soul consciousness and essence chi of the soul. Shi Yang knew that he couldn't use the relationship between the co-soul and the ancient continent to be invincible. Don't be noisy anymore. Are you done yet? The co-soul released the furious soul energy and focused on Shang Yingyu. I am noisy. It's you who is causing me trouble, Shang Yingyu said with a cold countenance. You took the guiding fruit that belongs to us. You peeped on me when I was in the pond. You robbed my 100 kalpa soul thread. Who is making noise here? Your father shoved the guiding fruit at me. I heard you screaming, so I came to check your situation. I was worried that something bad would happen to you. Don't you see that? Why did I take your 100 kalpa soul thread? If you didn't let Sho Jiao know about my whereabouts, should I have risked my life against him? You were right in everything that happened. What kind of logic is that? Shi Yang took a deep breath and then said, This is the last time I will remind you. The experts around here are joining hands. Only death awaits you and me. Moreover, a team is heading to us. Our fighting will be a prominent landmark to guide them. If you don't want to die, please stay quiet. Someone is coming. Shang Yingyu smiled faintly and mocked. Don't tell me you can sense the surroundings. As far as I know, no one could sense the auras of the experts on this planet. Can you do that? What kind of realm do you have? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Shi Yang sent her the message impatiently. Around 500 miles away, someone is coming. If we don't fight, they can't locate us. You can go there to check. I need to cultivate more, so I'll stay here. Then, his co-soul slowly lowered and disappeared into the muddy puddle. Shang Yingyu hesitated for a while. She snorted and left to check his information. Chapter 1101, Hand in Hand. Chapter 1101, Hand in Hand. Shang Yingyu didn't believe Shi Yang. Her father Shang Chen, the one who cultivated Fate Power Upanishad, had traveled through many big star areas. He knew many secrets that other people would never know. From her father, she knew the peculiar condition of the ancient continent, which didn't allow the soul consciousness to sense. In this place, they could only use eyes to observe. She didn't doubt what her father had told her. After she had arrived, she had confirmed the magical features of this area. She figured out that her soul consciousness and the soul energy would be restricted. However, she still went there to check. Shi Yang's performance was extraordinary. He could use earth and heaven energy of the ancient continent, which gave Shang Yingyu a feeling that he had fused with this ancient continent. Shang Yingyu was hesitant, indeed. As Shi Yang had pointed the direction, Shang Yingyu quietly moved towards it, using her secret treasure to hide her figure, aura, and even her life energy fluctuation. She moved invisibly towards that area. A group of 5 warriors was moving fast but relaxedly through the swamp. The 5 of them were at third sky of ethereal god realm, and the group included 4 old men and 1 woman. The 4 old men wore the same uniform, which was a dark blue fighting costume with a badge that had thick bones weaved on their left shoulders. Apparently, the 4 of them belonged to one force. The woman looked around 27 or 28 years old. She had beautiful, smiling eyes, and she was wearing a thin, cedar yellow dress to cover her graceful body. It seemed like she didn't come from the same force as the other 4. A bony old man was the leader of the other 4. His cheekbones rose high on his face and showed his malicious, ruthless contours. His snake eyes raked around the area as if he was searching for something. He suddenly rose his hand to make a gesture. The 3 men wearing the same uniform as him halted and observed gingerly. The graceful woman chuckled, but she also stopped. She pried, "Old Bai, the fight that we've detected stopped. Is it necessary to go there and check?" Bai Hao looked to the area further ahead of them. He contemplated, his face dark. "We will go there to see. With our powers, we don't need to be afraid of anything." Pausing for a while, he said, "MIA, the 7-colored demonic flower we just got is really precious. It's good for me." MIA, the only woman in this group, grinned and spoke indifferently, "It's good for me too." Bai Hao arched his brows and nodded. "Then never mind. Just keep it carefully. I don't want to bother you with my issues." MIA smiled softly. The 5 of them were talking while walking towards the bog where Shi Yang was hiding deep underground. Along the way, they were very cautious and watching everything abnormal around. They didn't know there was someone watching them silently. Of course, that was Shang Yingyu. Shang Yingyu had used the secret treasure to hide her body and any vital signals. Her eyes gazed on Bai Hao. Her murderous aura arose as if she had a deep grudge against him. Shang Yingyu looked at that group of 5 for a while and then ran as if she was flying. Dash! A burning soul emerged from the bog and sent Shang Yingyu a soul message. "Did you see them?" An electric beam flashed by a dry tree. Shang Yingyu appeared. She gritted her teeth, her face icy cold. "I saw them. They are from the Bai family of Dry Bone Star area, and there was one woman I didn't know." Her eyelashes twitched. "So you can really detect people in this ancient continent? Didn't you just confirm that?" Shi Yang's soul message was indifferent. "If we continue to fight, They will come here and follow the energy fluctuations. The 5 of them can kill the 2 of us. If you return the 100 Kalpa soul thread to me, I'll leave quickly, said Shang Yingyu persistently. Impossible. Shi Yang was enraged. If you want to court death, I'm not afraid to continue fighting you. You're hiding underground and using the 100 Kalpa soul thread to refine your ethereal extent. As long as I reveal your location, the Bai family will come to kill you. Shang Yingyu beamed a faint smile. Then we have nothing to discuss more, said Shi Yang impatiently. No, we can negotiate if you agree with me on one thing. Our previous resentment will be erased, said Shang Yingyu all of a sudden. What is that? Help me deal with those 5. Use your supernatural sensibility to locate them. Help me kill them, said Shang Yingyu resentfully. Do you hold any grudge against them? We have a grudge with the Bai family. The Bai family in Dry Bone Star area is the archenemy of my mother's family. They killed my grandfather and grandmother. Shang Yingyu's face was cold. Fantasy Mist Star area is adjacent to Dry Bone Star area. We have battles year-round. The Bai family is the overlord of Dry Bone Star area. They have some dark business with the God clan. They've been plotting against us for hundreds of years. My grandfather was killed in one of the Bai family's operations. We can't stand under the same sky as the Bai family. Why has your father not destroyed that family yet? The Bai family is domineering. It's famous for its intimidating presence in many star areas. It's not easy to deal with them, anyway. They're approaching. You should hide first. We will discuss this later. Then, Shi Yang dropped their conversation. His co-soul sank into the ground and entered his soul altar. Shang Yingyu pondered for seconds. Her shadow faded and then disappeared into the void. After a while, Bai Hao's team emerged. Bai Hao frowned and assessed the area. He carefully checked the streaks and traces around the bog. He confirmed, the competencies of both sides aren't normal. The 3 ethereal god realm experts of the Bai family came like a breeze. They stopped by Bai Hao and shook their heads, indicating that they didn't find anything special or anybody engaging in a fight. Oh, this trip was in vain, said MIA with disappointment. If I had known it earlier, I would have stayed and searched more in that exotic land. Perhaps we could have found another 7-colored demonic flower. Ah, I shouldn't have gone here with you. There are no meaningless fights in the ancient continent. Bai Hao observed the murky puddle inside the bog and said coldly, once a battle takes place, it means one thing. 2 people found a precious material at the same time. Taking a deep breath, Bai Hao said, perhaps there's something precious not far from us. Also, the other 2 have found us and left earlier. Maybe they have left the precious treasure they had fought for behind. The other 3 warriors of the Bai family had their eyes brighten. MIA teased them. The soul consciousness is restricted in this ancient continent. How could they detect us? Moreover, they were fighting. How could they have extra energy to observe around? I don't buy it. If you want to investigate, you do it. I don't want to waste my time with you guys. Then, MIA left early and didn't bother to bat her eyes at Bai Hao's team. After MIA had gone, one warrior of the Bai family asked in a cold and harsh voice. Dage, who is that woman? Why do you have to treat her with care like that? Is it true that our Bai family has to be afraid of her? I think we should kill her to take the 7-colored demonic flower. Bai Hao sighed begrudgingly. Don't act rashly. We can't offend this woman at the moment. If it was that easy, I would have killed her already. Who is she after all? Why do we have to give her a guiding fruit while bringing and protecting her here? Who could scare our Bai family? Said the man angrily. Don't ask too much. What you should know, I will tell you. I won't tell you what you shouldn't know. Bai Hao frowned and scolded, if you have extra energy, search around carefully to see if you can find any precious herbs or grass. We should take the chance when that woman isn't here to get it done. If we find anything, we can keep it. *T, we found the 7-colored demonic flower first and she claimed it. She pissed me off. Control yourself. Before we've come to the ancient continent, I got the order to try our best to protect that woman. You guys have to watch over her. Dage, Who gave you that order? The family's head. The 3 ethereal god realm experts of the Bai family shut their mouths. They stooped and felt dispirited as they had to accept their mission begrudgingly. The 4 of them walked around and found no shadow or any good materials. Eventually, they had to leave reluctantly. Swoosh. A swift current shot out of the bog. Shi Yang slowly emerged from that rapid current. Taking a deep breath, Shi Yang felt refreshed. Divine light moved in his eyes. He flickered his mind and the 3 powers in his tier of power Upanishad flashed one after another. Within one breath, he had shifted his energy between 3 powers. When he used the 100 Kalpa soul thread to train his ethereal extent, many disasters happened to his ethereal extent with different natural powers. However, his 3 powers Upanishads had dissolved them all. Afterward, he knew more abilities of the 3 powers Upanishads, especially the star power Upanishad. He vaguely felt that he had touched the door of the next breakthrough. He must have a significant understanding of the star, death and life, and space power Upanishads to break to second sky of ethereal god realm. He had advanced his star and space powers Upanishad. Now he needed to focus on his death and life power Upanishad. People with more than 1 powers Upanishad would find it hard to break through once they reached ethereal god realm. However, after each breakthrough, their powers and realms would advance even further. If he could master his powers Upanishads, he could use them to support each other. When that happened, his true power was going to be much more tremendous and powerful than the warriors with only 1 power Upanishad. It was also the reason why it was hard to make further progress in cultivating different powers at the same time. They still tried to practice them. A warrior who had mastered more powers Upanishads was unquestionably stronger than ordinary warriors. Shang Yingyu's graceful figure suddenly appeared, her eyes still cold. She asked, "What's your plan?" "I'll help you," Shi Yang smiled brightly, "but I have one condition." "What's the condition?" "I want the 7-colored demonic flower that the woman keeps." One of the reasons why he went to the ancient continent was to take this kind of strange flower, which could help rescue Yang Tian Emperor. Deal. Chapter 1102, The General Situation of the Sea of Stars. Chapter 1102, The General Situation of the Sea of Stars. The 7-colored demonic flower was the factor for Yang Tian Emperor's recovery. It was also his primary goal when Shi Yang came to this ancient continent. This kind of demonic flower was able to wash the soul-rotting aphis in Yang Tian Emperor's head. When he heard that MIA kept the flower, he had made up his mind. Inside the wet swamp, Shi Yang and Shang Yingyu concealed their auras, trolling like 2 departed spirits towards Bai Hao and MIA. Shang Yingyu sometimes explained it to him. Shi Yang frowned, his face severe. From Shang Yingyu, he knew more information about this universe. Different from Fiery Rain Star Area and Agate Star Area, Fantasy Mist Star Area was one of the strongest star areas in this vast universe. At the same time, this star area had the most prominent feature. Fantasy Mist Star Area wasn't a closed galaxy. Agate Star Area and Fiery Rain Star Area were high-level star areas with intimidating incipient God Realm experts with generally outstanding competences. However, due to some reasons, there were space barriers between those star areas. Most of the space passages that connected to the other star areas were blocked. The forces of the 2 star areas had proactively cut off the connection to the outer world. They produced the goods they needed to shut themselves. Since they didn't have many connections with the outer world, they didn't know much of the vast universe and the intimidation of the God Clan. Just like that, the other significant star areas didn't have a high evaluation of Fiery Rain Star Area and Agate Star Area. They thought that the others were a bunch of freaks who didn't understand how to develop the star area. But this Fantasy Mist area was different. This star area wasn't closed. It had a close connection to the other big star areas as it had many routes and passages leading to different galaxies. There was no space barrier between this star area and the others. They did it on purpose. Fantasy Mist Star Area was the real door that opened to the immense sea of stars. Thus, Shang Yingyu's understanding of outer space and the other powerful forces everywhere wasn't something that Shi Yang could imagine or compare to. Through her introduction, Shi Yang's knowledge of the top powerful forces in this universe gradually got clearer. The truth wasn't so much different from what he had known. Ancient God Star area where the God Clan stayed was no doubt the strongest star area in this universe. The God Clan was also the strongest force. They were the immemorial beast that crouched in the universe and could bite any prey it considered suitable at a favorable moment. The 12 great families of the God Clan had ruled some smaller star areas. Each family had many experts like clouds in the sky. The God Clan was formed by the 12 great families, which was like a horde of bloodthirsty lions always trying to showcase their invading instinct. The God Clan was so mighty and ancient God Star area was acknowledged as the strongest star area in the universe. They ruled forces from everywhere. Although the God Clan and their ancient God Star area was dominant and ranked first, they hadn't really claimed the entire universe. There were still some smaller star areas and forces that the God Clan didn't dare to provoke or declare war with. There were some star areas, some forces, and some solid experts in this vast universe. Due to the existence of such forces and star areas, the God Clan couldn't invade most of the star areas in the vast sea of stars and turn them into its private territory to make many clans and forces its vassals. Hollow Fearsome Star Area, Fantasy Mist Star Area, and Dry Bone Star Area were some examples. These star areas had super powerful forces with peerless warriors. Although one force of them couldn't resist the entire God Clan, it was enough to withstand one or more families of the God Clan. Usually, if it was not a disaster that could destroy their clan, the 12 families of the God Clan didn't really unite. Thus, Hollow Fearsome Star Area, Fantasy Mist Star Area, and Dry Bone Star Area had a slot in this immense sea of stars. If the influential star areas like Hollow Fearsome Star Area, Fantasy Mist Star Area, and Dry Bone Star Area with some other star areas could stand still in the flood of God Clan's invasion, it meant that they were brutal and powerful enough. They didn't shut themselves out. Those star areas connected to each other and they exchanged things. Sometimes, they would create chances for warriors to discuss their powers and competences. They were like allies of the same star areas. However, this kind of ally wasn't officially defined. They wouldn't always get along well. Sometimes, they would have disputes, which could even accelerate to a war. However, once the God Clan dared to let its mental problem expand to these areas and affect their benefits, those allies would unite. The union of powerful star areas from everywhere in the vast universe could resist the entire God Clan. Thus, they could restrict the God Clan and make them invade star areas that aren't in the union. Since Fiery Rain Star Area and Agate Star Area had defended themselves alone for so many years, they weren't members of this union. Also, as they didn't receive any help or protection, they were the delicious meat in the God Clan's eyes. Of course, the God Clan would spend their best efforts to swallow them. GU God Sect of Hollow Fearsome Star Area, the Bai family of Dry Bone Star Area, the Wu family of Prosaic Star Area, and the Drifting Fire of Fantasy Mist Star Area were some of the famous, dominating forces in this vast universe besides the God Clan. Those forces were loose in the Union. They had secret disputes and competitions. Perhaps they had caused grudges. When the God Clan wasn't a threat to them, they would have a lot of battles. But if the God Clan invaded one of these star areas, they would unite to counter it. Of course, after several fierce wars with the God Clan for thousands of years, God Clan didn't show any intent to invade any of those allies anymore. Since they didn't have a common enemy, the allies in this loose union had been continuously fighting each other, which accelerated after many years and got more furious. The war between the Drifting Fire of Fantasy Mist Star Area and the Bai family of Dry Bone Star Area became so fierce that their core experts were killed. Shang Yingyu's grandfather was one of the leaders of the Drifting Fire. He was killed in the fight against the Bai family. This kind of grudge would never be untied. Lately, the Bai family seems to join hands with the God Clan. We received intelligence. The battleships of Ancient God Star Area and Dry Bone Star Area have done business. We believe they should have some agreement with the God Clan. Since we found something unusual in their operation, the Bai family has aimed at us. My grandfather's death is somehow related to a family of the God Clan. Shang Yingyu said through her gritted teeth. Doesn't your union consider the God Clan your enemy? Why does the Bai family have a connection with the God clan? Shi Yang was surprised. The God clan is too powerful. At the same time, they are good at enticing people. They've offered the temptation that the Bai family couldn't resist. Perhaps the Bai family couldn't stand their desires, so they shook hands with the God clan. Shang Yingyu frowned and said, for example, the God clan could invite the Bai family to attack a star area together. After they have taken that area down, the Bai family could share all the benefits with the God clan. The Bai family couldn't resist such a deal. Once they go on the same road as the God clan, slowly, they will become the God clan's henchmen. They will never escape. God clan has many tricks to recruit strong clans and forces. Take the Dark Shadow clan for example. That clan was really strong. However, they have become the watchdog of the God clan. I still have many examples if you want to hear. Shi Yang grimaced. The more he understood the general picture of the universe, the more he knew about the God clan's intimidation. The God clan had spread their forces to the entire universe like long tentacles tying down each star area in this vast universe that slowly pulled them into its hands. If it kept going at this invasion speed, the forces that didn't belong to this union would become the vassals of the God clan soon. Sooner or later, even that loose star area union would be divided. God clan would swallow its members, one by one. This God clan was like a bloodthirsty beast with endless desires. It wanted this entire universe. You say the Bai family and the God clan have joined hands? Asked Shi Yang. Shang Yingyu nodded. My father has a precise presumption. He said that the Bai family and the God clan has been plotting against a star area called Agate Star Area. It's my father's homeland. The Bai family and the God clan already have a plan. They will deploy their armies together. They even have a plan to divide that star area. Shi Yang had a dark face. I'm from Agate Star Area. Shang Yingyu was surprised. She said faintly, what a coincidence. Shi Yang didn't say more. He silently let his co-soul flow up and observed the surroundings like the eye of heaven. Shi Yang knew the direction of Bai Hao and MIA. His co-soul could recognize their location and direction easily. The different talents were all ineffective in this ancient continent like open eyes of the blind. Although the soul consciousness couldn't sense around, since Shi Yang's co-soul had the same origin as this ancient continent, he wasn't bound to this strict restriction. He could still sense the surroundings precisely. They were waiting for a good chance to attack the others. As they weren't the opponents of that ground of 5, they had to follow them closely and quietly. However, they hadn't attacked yet. All of a sudden, Shi Yang furrowed his brows and halted. Shang Yingyu's graceful body also stopped. She swayed her delicate waist and turned around to look at him, her beautiful eyes confused. Bai Hao's group and MIA were heading to the big hole that Shi Yang had dug up with his power, where he saw a faint blue light that had sent a vibe to the star in his ethereal extent. It was possibly something precious. At this moment, Bai Hao and MIA seemed to have discovered something. They stood there silently. Are you going to take action now? Shang Yingyu exhaled quietly and asked, if you're not sure, you shouldn't act rashly. If the 5 of them don't scatter, we won't be able to fight them. Shi Yang nodded. He suddenly sat down cross-legged on the wet, muddy ground. He squinted and didn't say a word. His co-soul flickered like a ghost flame, releasing the clear soul energy fluctuation. After a long time, Shi Yang's eyes flared with the frightening cold light. I got it. What? Shang Yingyu was surprised. Wait for the fun part. Shi Yang disappeared like a cold lightning and glided in another direction. Chapter 1103, Upset a Plan. Chapter 1103, Upset a Plan. Shang Yingyu couldn't guess Shi Yang's thoughts or his plan in mind. She couldn't check the commotions around like Shi Yang, so she could only stay quietly here and wait for him. Shi Yang had left for 1 hour. She wasn't worried about anything unexpected happening or his situation. After she had confirmed that Shi Yang could still use his soul consciousness to sense around this ancient continent, people would find it hard to attack him unless he wanted to see trouble. Of course, Shi Yang wasn't that kind of impulsive person. She thought that Shi Yang had changed his mind. She didn't know how important the 7-colored demonic flower was to Shi Yang. Thus, she just assumed that Shi Yang had fled because he knew that he couldn't resist Bai Hao and MIA. He had just made an excuse to ditch her here. The more Shang Yingyu thought about this possibility, the more likely it appeared to her. Her face gradually turned colder and harsher. She gritted her teeth and cursed. The Bai family and her force were like water and fire. Through several hundred years, they had fought a lot. Her grandfather was killed in a raid led by the Bai family and the God clan. Earlier, her mother had told her to be aware of the Bai family. If she had a chance, she should try her best to attack them. She still remembered how her loving grandfather had treated her. After he returned home from the war every time, he would give her some gifts that would make her excited for a long time. When she was a little girl, her grandfather would hold her on his lap or his shoulder, play with her, and take her flying up to the blue sky with cotton clouds. She'd been mourning for him since the day she knew he was killed. At that time, she had cried for 10 days. Her tears were a chain of broken pearls. At that time, she was small and her realm wasn't profound. She was at King God realm only. She didn't have the capacity to take revenge for her grandfather. However, right at that moment, she had crossed her heart that she would use all of her strength to smash the Bai family. Years later, she knew how strong the Bai family was and the relationship between the Bai family and the God clan. They used to fight the Bai family with victories and losses. One time, the Bai family had ambushed her and her brother, Shang Qiu. Also in that battle, Shang Qiu's soul altar got damaged after he rescued her. Shang Yingyu was grinding her white teeth, her beautiful eyes flaring with a cold aura. She had made up her mind. Even if no one wanted to help her, she would hide and wait for the right chance to strike the Bai family hard. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The fluttering sounds of clothes moving in the wind came together with a brutal aura that approached her. Shang Yingyu's bold brows slightly furrowed. She hid silently in the dark and waited. Her eyes brightened as she retrieved a radiant light cage that was covering her body entirely. She appeared and exhaled. "What did you do?" "Helped you deal with the warriors of the Bai family." A strange flame flickered above Shi Yang's head as he was gliding like a ghost towards Shang Yingyu. His thoughts changed and he retrieved the co-soul and his soul altar. He spoke to Shang Yingyu, "Help me conceal my body. I'm going to take you to see something fun." While talking, he didn't mind his manner in approaching Shang Yingyu. "I know you have a special secret treasure. I'm not sure I can hide two people." Seeing him come close, Shang Yingyu looked reluctant. She hurried to scream, "Stop." A part of her creamy hand flashed a light of beautiful jade. An emerald green color burst out a faint icy blue halo. It looked like a massive bowl set upside down to cover her graceful, sexy body. The blue light quietly became transparent and then disappeared. Shang Yingyu's aura and body disappeared altogether. "There's still room for you, but you aren't allowed to stand too close to me," Shang Yingyu said coldly from nowhere. "Understood." Shi Yang nodded and got inside the cage, his face natural and calm. People couldn't see any difference from the outside. Inside the deep blue cage, touching the barrier of blue sea water felt like touching ice. The cage wasn't huge. When Shi Yang got inside, he had to stand shoulder by shoulder with Shang Yingyu. There was a narrow gap between them. He could inhale a faint orchid aroma from Shang Yingyu's body. Also, he could feel her soft but slightly cold shoulder. A blue electric arc flashed on Shang Yingyu's shoulder. A blue electric arrow made a straight line that separated Shi Yang and Shang Yingyu. "Don't stick to me," hissed Shang Yingyu. Shrugging, Shi Yang mumbled, "Who's interested in you?" "Hey." Shang Yingyu suddenly turned around, shooting him a glare. "What do you want me to watch that's so fun? If you lie to me, I won't leave you alone." She took several deep breaths in her anger, which made her thrust out her mesmerizing, breathtaking breasts. "We're just the audience." Squinting and looking at the area ahead of them, Shi Yang's eyes were like ice sabers. He muttered, "I have no feeling for people who shake hands with the God clan. If I get a chance to do evil deeds, well, I won't let it slip away. It's not just their team that will come to this ancient continent, anyway." "You mean, you found another team?" Shang Yingyu's graceful body shook. Her mouths curved in fear. You want to provoke a battle with them? We don't need to provoke anyone, Shi Yang smiled evilly. People will fight for benefits in this ancient continent. Strong warriors can't avoid disputes here. Especially when Bai Hao's team seems to have found something over there. You're despicable. Thanks for the compliment. That deep hole was dozens of mu large, which looked dark and bottomless. Many dirty, discomposed leaves were swirling inside that hole. It was caused by Shi Yang's attack when he was chasing after Shuo Zhao. The deep pit was filled with filthy water and mud while grass and leaves were floating on the surface. There was nothing to appraise in this area. However, there were 5 warriors standing and watching by the edge of the hole. Bai Hao and the 3 warriors of the Bai family frowned. They didn't know why MIA wanted to come here or what she was doing. A delicate, hexagonal crystal glowing in clear red light was held in her green onion-like fingers. She was fondling that crystal, her eyes bright. A long moment later, the glowing red lozenge crystal shot out a rainbow light from its 6 points. The 6 beams of light were straight like swords, but they all combined into one muddy point in that swampy hole. The energy of the rainbow light hit on that point. Something inside exploded. Sizzle. 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 Strange noises started to hiss from that area, which was unpleasant to the ears. The 4 people of Bai Hao's group were gloomy. They felt it was very grating and it made their scalps numb as if someone was using a sharp tool to drill into their soul altars. The 4 of them felt so uncomfortable. However, MIA looked excited as her bright eyes lit up. Something is there, indeed. A blue light suddenly shot out from the point that the rainbow light was illuminating and smashed the rainbow light. The hexagonal crystal in Mia's hand grumbled as if it was about to shatter. MIA was both happy and frightened. She hurried to put her unique, energy-sensing device into her fantasy sky ring. She was so delighted to gaze at that blue light. The hexagonal crystal could sense strange crystals and other precious treasures that had strong energy. The stronger the energy that object had, the fiercer her crystal would react. Recently, her crystal started slowly breaking. She understood that no matter what it was, the thing deep in that muddy ground would have absolutely powerful energy. Mia's eyes had a divine light that was as bright as a torch. She smiled happily. You guys, go and check it out. She turned her head and bent her body slightly to request Bai Hao's group to help her investigate that area. Bai Hao changed his complexion a little bit, but the other 3 were obviously enraged. Exploring the unknown objects would be accompanied with unforeseen dangers. If she didn't do it herself, she knew that it was dangerous. She had ordered Bai Hao's team like a master to make them bear the danger for her. So, didn't your family's head tell you anything? MIA was still smiling but her eyes were getting colder. Bai Hao was shaken. He recalled what the family head told him. He sweated and hurriedly replied, "Don't worry. We know what to do." He nodded to the other 3. The 3 of them had reluctant faces. They sighed inwardly before gathering their energy to investigate the area where the blue light shot out. Rumble. 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 Ear-splitting noises came from another corner of the swamp. Wu Bai with the big hammer and the gold armor was running like an imposing mountain. Every time he stomped the ground, it sounded like they were creating earthquakes. Wu Feng was like a ghost that smiled gently and waved his fan slightly while following his younger brother. We got good luck anyway. We just got the 100 Kalpa soul thread not long ago. Now, something good is coming up. Haha, Dage, you say, what do we do this time? Wu Bei shouted violently as if he wasn't afraid of anyone. Of course, we have to identify what it is. Then, we will decide what to do, smiled Wu Feng. While they were talking, they passed Shi Yang and Shong Yingyu who were concealing their bodies. They dashed towards Bai Hao's group. Dash! Inside the light cage that the others couldn't detect, Shong Yingyu's delicate face had a gleam of surprise. Why did you get them here? They were the nearest group. And they're the strongest. Shi Yang explained naturally. Those 2 brothers have the competence to fight against the 4 warriors of the Bai family. Although they are all at 3rd sky of ethereal god realm, those 2 brothers are much stronger. Of course, the Wu brothers of prosaic star area aren't the vagabonds. Shang Yingyu's eyes were strange. The Wu family. Is this Wu family strong too? How is it compared to the Bai family? One level stronger. Shi Yang was surprised. Are we just staying here or what? Shang Yingyu lifted her head. Her energy surged in her body as if she wanted to join the battle. I have no objection if you want to come close to watch the battle. Anyway, the precondition is making sure they don't detect you. Are you sure they won't? Shi Yang looked placid. He spoke faintly, we can join the battle too, but we have to wait until they determine the winner first. Can you do that? Of course, I can. All right, we're going there. I'm also curious as to what they have found. Chapter 1104, The Brilliant Starfruit Tree. Chapter 1104, The Brilliant Starfruit Tree. Bai Hao pointed with his index finger. A green light shot out from his fingertip like a flexible rope that fell into the bottomless pit. Swoosh! His light beam suddenly shattered and turned into dots of lights that fell into the center of the pit like pieces of broken glass. An energy fluctuation suddenly shot out of that bottomless pit. Something was emerging from the ground as if an invisible force was pushing something through the layers of soil and mud. The three warriors of the Bai family squinted. A strange light flared in their eyes. They mobilized their energy discreetly. Mia's picturesque eyebrows twitched. She pulled herself together and smiled. Her 10 slender fingers fidgeted the hexagonal crystal and made it emit radiant divine light. A green stone slowly emerged from the filthy swamp. That stone wasn't significant. It had the shape of a tree with many greenish halos covering the entire stone. The energy that the stone sent out was really sharp. The tree-shaped stone had many cracks where there was even thicker green light. Drilling their line of sight through the cracks, they could see something inside the stone. Under that tree-shaped stone, the beam of energy that Bai Hao had controlled slowly brought the stone out of the murky pit. Bai Hao frowned and studied that matter for a while. He asked in astonishment, "What is this?" He looked at Mia. The other warriors of the Bai family looked perplexed. They didn't know what that tree-shaped stone was. Mia didn't reply, her eyes focusing on the stone and her shoulder shivering. Boom! She suddenly squeezed off a hexagonal crystal in her hand. A beautiful light dot flew out and barged on that tree-shaped stone. Boom! Waves of dazzling light shot out like the magnificent light of a broken star. The white and green lights became blinding like lightning. However, shortly after, the white light was subdued and it left only some greenish light. In the center of the explosion, the tree-shaped stone had disappeared and left nothing. A clean stream floated above the dirty swamp like a cotton cloud. The cool and pure aura emitted from the stream calmed people's souls. The green stream looked like a green mirror floating above the boggy ground. It seemed to be a strange tree for this scenery. Bai Hao's eyes brightened. He couldn't help but scream, "There's something inside." Inside that clear stream was a tree with many roots and moist, fresh, lush branches and leaves. That tree seemed to be made of flawless, exquisite green jade. It was so perfect. The trunk of that tree was as big as an arm and it was as tall as an adult. People could see some chestnut-sized fruits hanging on different branches. Those fruits had many fine patterns on the surface as they were blinking brilliantly like real stars. A strange tree grew inside a clear stream with some magnificent fruits. All of these details made Bai Hao's team astounded. There were 9 fruits on that tree. All of them marvelously twinkled like a star with a strong but strange energy. Mia gazed at the clear stream and the fruit tree inside. Her face was blushing charmingly. Her big breasts bounced slightly when she gasped. Evidently, she was so thrilled. Including Bai Hao, the 4 experts of the Bai family discreetly swallowed their saliva looking at the woman. They were so mesmerized by her sexy glamour. However, they were actually screaming inwardly to wake up their mind. "What is it?" Bai Hao took a deep breath and pretended to be calm. He wasn't foolish. From Mia's complexion, he knew that the fruit tree in that stream was really precious. Although he was ordered to protect Mia, he also had the mission to collect bizarre but valuable items for the Bai family. He wouldn't ignore anything that appeared to be good. The brilliant starfruit tree. Mia's full lips curled, her beautiful eyes bright and her voice soft. "Help me take it out." Bai Hao's group looked at each other. They appeared as if they had never heard of the brilliant starfruit tree, so they didn't take action immediately. "Forgive my ignorance. I've never heard of the brilliant starfruit tree. I don't know how to take it. Please advise," frowned Bai Hao. Mia smiled warmly. She pointed at the green halo twirling around the stream. "First, let's break those halos. Can you use your power Upanishad?" The 4 warriors of the Bai family nodded. They winked and signaled each other to approach the halos. They were cautious and didn't hurry to use their power Upanishad just yet. Boom! When the 4 warriors of the Bai family were about to take action, a massive hammer like a dazzling gold sun came from a far distance with the power of a thunderstorm. Bai Hao discolored. He said resolutely, "Kill them first." The other 3 warriors of the Bai family had malicious eyes. They put aside the fruit tree and detached. They looked at the massive hammer that was like a scorching sun. The giant hammer radiated billions of gold beams, which were as sharp as a sword. The surging energy gushing out from that hammer was really frightening. Bai Hao snorted and touched his forehead. A giant furry white ape stormed out from his glabella. That giant ape wasn't a real entity as it was condensed by energy. This white ape was dozens of meters tall. As soon as it appeared, it made people around look so small. The giant white ape faced the sky and roared, releasing its murderous aura and energy. The massive, mountain-like hands balled into fists as it shouted and punched that gold hammer. When it touched the hammer, its body emitted gold light as if it was walloped by the hammer. Wu Bai's hammer looked like a windmill, which was tiny compared to that white ape. However, countless gold beams from that hammer acted like billions of sharp knives that cut the white ape into smaller pieces. It exploded instantly. Bai Hao paled and snorted. The smaller pieces of the white ape gathered one more time. After 3 breaths, the giant ape reappeared, screaming and roaring crazily above Bai Hao's head. The 3 other warriors of the Bai family also urged their powers. Phantoms of beasts emerged above their heads. There was a demonic dragon, a lightning eagle, and a giant python that looked like a mountain range. The Bai family's members had a peculiar power Upanishad. The giant white ape, demonic dragon, fighting eagle, and the massive python was created by their energy and power Upanishad. They weren't beasts, but they had the power of Bai Hao's team. Their bodies contained turbulent energy that wasn't less than the Bai Hao's team itself. The Bai family. A cold voice arose. They saw Wu Feng drifting towards them like a ghost with his feather fan in his hand. Boom! A muscular body landed from the sky, stomping on the ground and creating some tremors. The man rose his hand and the gold hammer fell into his hand. "Dag." Wu Bai looked so excited. He thundered, "Finally, we will have an exciting battle." Mia frowned. Bai Hao's team quieted down, their faces getting stern. When the 2 sides were observing each other, commotions happened in another corner. Inside the light cage, Shang Yingyu's beautiful face was so cold as she glared at Shi Yang maliciously. Shang Yingyu acted as if she didn't see that. Another energy shockwave swarmed over. The light cage twisted like a leather bag in the strong wind. The force pressed on the light cage, pushing Shi Yang towards Shang Yingyu. Their limbs touched. Sometimes, when the shockwave was too strong, Shi Yang would tremble, which allowed his legs and lower body to touch Shang Yingyu's curvy, ample but cheeks. Shang Yingyu screamed like a stray cat. This light cage wasn't wide. When the energy of the battle swept over this area, it twisted, which gave the 2 standing inside some physical contact. Wu Bai's and Bai Hao's energy impacted, sending away shockwaves far away. After a while, Shi Yang had touched Shang Yingyu's white arms, slender, straight thighs, and breathtakingly round but several times. Although Shang Yingyu knew that Shi Yang couldn't control this, she was still enraged. Her beautiful eyes flared up with cold light as she hated herself for letting Shi Yang enter this light cage. In her cold eyes, Shi Yang was still calm and natural as if nothing had happened. He focused on watching the Bai family's warriors and the Wu brothers. He still had free time to take out the book that Shang Chen had given him. He started studiously reading as if he was searching something. Shang Yingyu felt her teeth get itchy. Found it. Shi Yang suddenly screamed, his face astounded as he read a page with the drawing and description of something called Brilliant Starfruit Tree. Lifting his head, he took a deep breath, his eyes hot. You know the Brilliant Starfruit Tree, don't you? The book you have is from my father. Of course, I know what the Brilliant Starfruit Tree is. It's an original incipient grade material. It has an unimaginable effect on the warriors who cultivate star power Upanishad. Shang Yingyu snorted, answering coldly. I cultivate star power Upanishad. Shi Yang pulled himself together and beamed a faint smile. Shang Yingyu didn't change her complexion. I knew it. Good then, he turned around and grinned, I want the Brilliant Starfruit Tree. Yeah, just consider it one of the conditions I want to help you deal with the Bai family. In Shang Yingyu's eyes, she had a sneer that she didn't want to hide. I have no objection. But do you think you can snatch that tree from the Bai family and the Wu brothers? You dumb. You don't need to care about this. You just need to agree on my conditions. He looked at the two parties, his face stern and brave. She could see the determination in his eyes that showed that he wouldn't give up until he got it. That Brilliant Starfruit Tree must belong to me. Whether it is the Bai family or the Wu family, they shouldn't dream about taking my possessions. Shang Yingyu smiled disdainfully, well, low realm but high voice, eh? Chapter 1105, Awkward Exposition. Chapter 1105, Awkward Exposition. Shi Yang felt his enthusiasm surging. He had only Shang Chen's introduction of the Brilliant Starfruit Tree in his head. He didn't listen to what Shang Yingyu was telling him. It was hard to tell what the Brilliant Starfruit Tree was. Shang Chen wasn't so sure if it was a plant or a kind of inheritance. It was really tough to create the Brilliant Starfruit Tree. It required an expert who cultivated star power Upanishad to incipient God realm. This expert's soul altar had to have shattered when he died. His incipient extent could fuse with a life star while pieces of his shattered soul altar filled the corners of that life star, which made it turn into a meteor. The meteor would then drift in the vast sea of stars and continue gathering the energy of the stars. After countless years, it would become the Brilliant Starfruit Tree. Thus, the Brilliant Starfruit Tree could be deemed a shattered soul altar of an incipient God realm expert who cultivated star power Upanishad. It was the energy crystallization of the stars in the form of a tree. The fruit of the Brilliant Starfruit Tree was called the Brilliant Starfruit. The energy accumulated inside a Brilliant Starfruit was as much as what a level 3 life star could have. At the same time, the tree had the essence of star power Upanishad in its branches and roots. It was the consolidation of the energy and star power Upanishad, the soul altar of an incipient God realm who had gone to nirvana. After different training times, it could collect star energy. Slowly, it became that tree with the knowledge of the incipient God realm expert. Thus, it could be considered a star power Upanishad's inheritance too. If ordinary people had the Brilliant Starfruit, they could understand the star power Upanishad in one step. At the same time, they could receive pure energy in that fruit. It was similar to picking up the inheritance of star power Upanishad, which could help the warrior reach the realm of the deceased incipient God realm, without a significant bottleneck. Also, even if the warrior didn't cultivate that power Upanishad, once he had the Brilliant Starfruit, one day, he could enter the incipient God realm if he didn't get killed. A Brilliant Starfruit Tree could create an incipient God realm expert cultivating star power Upanishad. If a warrior got the Brilliant Starfruit Tree, he could absorb the energy in the fruits to fill their essence chi ancient tree, which would help him have more God power to break through. If the warrior who cultivated star power Upanishad got the Brilliant Starfruit Tree, not only would the warrior take in the energy, but he could also learn the essence of star power Upanishad, which would advance his realm to a level that people had to admire. If he could get that Brilliant Starfruit Tree, Shi Yang didn't need to struggle with his star power Upanishad anymore. He could absorb the knowledge of star power rapidly to transform his star power Upanishad. It was truly an original incipient grade material that seemed to be customized for him. How could he let it slip away? No wonder why his ethereal extent had had some strange vibes when he saw the blue light in that area. His star power Upanishad resonated with that tree. Shi Yang's eyes were as sharp as swords that gazed that brilliant star fruit tree through the invisible light cage. He had to get it. Dash. The Wu brothers. Bai Hao frowned tightly. The three warriors of the Bai family scattered and surrounded the brilliant star fruit tree. As soon as Wu Feng and Wu Bai had any strange commotion, they would attack immediately. The demonic dragon, the fighting eagle, and the python were like three unreal mountains floating above their heads. As the three beasts were made of the energy, souls, and spirits of the three warriors, they were especially intimidating. Bai Hao's giant white ape pounded its chest and roared. Its murderous energy shot up into the sky, which looked so real. Hey, Bai people. We are also interested in that brilliant star fruit tree. What do you say? Wu Feng walked forward and smiled while waving his feather fan, his eyes dark and malicious. If you let us take it, we won't trouble you. I know that you know how to behave. Although Wu Feng and Wu Bai had come here alone, they were so arrogant and tyrannical when they asked the others to give up the treasure. Bai Hao's team grimaced. Inside the immense sea of stars, the Wu family of prosaic star area was indeed famous. Their general competence was actually stronger than that of the Bai family. Everybody knew how intimidating the Wu brothers were. Although Bai Hao wasn't young and had the same realm, he knew that there wasn't any benefit from fighting those two. However, they had 4 people here plus MIA. The Wu brothers. Bai Hao sneered coldly. I know you guys are strong. I also know your family's intimidation. But in this ancient continent, haha. He looked at MIA. MIA frowned, her face impatient. Don't waste my time. Bai Hao was shocked. He shouted abruptly. Kill. The giant white ape roared crazily like thunderclaps. It bared its fangs and jumped over, falling like a pressing mountain on the Wu brothers. At the same time, the demonic dragon, fighting eagle, and the python, the 3 beasts generated by energy, also flew out. While they were moving in the sky, they had even discolored the sky. The energy surging from them was so earth-shaking. When the giant white ape landed, it created 2 deep holes on the ground. They couldn't see the bottoms. The demonic dragon rolled in the swamp, creating more ditches and sending mud into the air. Their energy magnetic fields burst off like an erupting volcano, stirring the entire area. Wu Bai lifted his hammer. Dazzling gold light bloomed on his armor. He looked like a gold angel. He looked at the Bai family's warriors without fear. Wu Feng had cold eyes. He had a mocking smile on his handsome face. The fan in his hand opened and closed from time to time. The rivers gushed out powerfully like ropes tying down the 4 massive beasts. From that moment, the Bai family's warriors and the Wu brothers started to fight furiously. They stirred up the entire place. Dust rose. The ground cracked. If it wasn't an ancient continent, it wouldn't have been able to stand the furious battle of the 4 peak of ethereal god realm experts. MIA was like a fresh flower standing aside. She had a faint smile on her face and she didn't look like she would join this battle. It seemed like the Bai family's warriors were all her servants in her point of view. Thus, they had to shoulder her troubles. This kind of battle task was the Bai family's responsibility. MIA didn't hurry to take the brilliant star fruit tree. Her line of sight switched between the Bai family's warriors and the Wu brothers. No one knew what she was thinking. As the light cage leaned from side to side, Shang Yingyu's graceful body shivered. She gritted her teeth, her face grimaced. The battle between the Wu brothers and the 4 warriors of the Bai family had risen earth-shaking energy shockwaves like tornadoes that expanded. They made many trees around burst off and the ground crack. If they weren't far from the battle and the light cage didn't have a potent defense, Shang Yingyu and Shi Yang would have to have used their energy to resist. Inside the light cage, Shi Yang and Shang Yingyu were pushed together as if someone was teasing them. They trembled as if they were drunk. Sometimes, their chests touched while other times, their waists and butts collided. It felt like they were sitting on a bobbing boat that couldn't be stabilized. Shi Yang still looked calm, but he was actually amused. After a while, his limbs had touched her ample breasts and her round but more than 10 times. After each time, he felt so amazed as if he received a light touch of electricity. The grudge that Shang Ying had vented out like that. The blue dress clung to her body. The soft and beautiful material of the dress showcased her generous contours. Her straight thighs were so mesmerizing in a pair of silver boots. Shang Ying had snow-white skin and creamy exposing arms. She also had a slim waist and sexy legs. Shang Ying's body indeed had a golden ratio that people couldn't find any flaw to complain. At this moment, her ice-like face was embarrassed and enraged. She hissed, "Die, king asshole." She stooped, looking at the space between Shi Yang's legs. At first glance, she knew that Shi Yang was pretending to be calm. The flame of anger in her heart burst out. Something that looked like a one-horned dragon emerged in between his legs, bulging his pants like a small tent. It wanted to show its rough and brutal characteristics. It's a normal reaction. Don't be startled. You're a woman. I'm a man. We're this close. It's unavoidable. Shi Yang staggered and didn't look at her. Another fierce shockwave swarmed over them. Shang Ying reluctantly trembled and leaned on Shi Yang. The light cage sent them a furious shockwave like a powerful hand shoving her into Shi Yang's lap. A rigid, hot shaft placed on her round butt. At that moment, Shang Ying felt like she received an electric shock. Shame and anger flooded her. Get lost. A flow of lightning energy shot out of Shang Ying's shoulder and entered Shi Yang's body, who was unguarded. Boom. Shi Yang emerged and staggered out of the light cage. However, his lower body was still sticking like an iron pole, as if it could tear his pants to get out at any minute. Her beautiful eyes had a strange light, as MIA was planning something. She suddenly saw a young man with a grimace on his face and the short lance under his pants. He was standing on a rock on the left of the swamp. His lust posture was so obvious. MIA was bewildered. She didn't know what was going on, but she just kept staring at that young man. Under her awkward look, the young man turned around and punched the light curtain behind him. A beautiful woman appeared with an embarrassed face and a red neck. MIA was stunned for seconds. She felt so awkward when she said, "Well, you two have some special interest, I guess. You like to have fun when others are fighting fiercely. Did you move so fast that you broke your concealing equipment?" She felt so funny as she teased the other two. She thought that it was interesting, indeed. Shang Ying hated that she couldn't dig into the ground and go underground immediately. Looking at MIA with an odd face, she was so angry that she almost fainted. She had never been in such a helter-skelter situation. Shi Yang looked indifferent. He smiled and shrugged at MIA. "Well, you guys, keep fighting. We won't disturb you. We're leaving now. Bye." "Oh, please don't." MIA thinned her lips, her eyes sparkling. "You guys can continue your fun. Just consider it like no one's here. Ah, if you don't mind, I do want to watch. I heard that some people like others watching them when they do that. Since you have such a special passion, I'm interested." Shang Ying felt blood rise to her brain. She shivered and trembled as if she couldn't steady her body anymore. Chapter 1106, Change Again and Again. Chapter 1106, Change Again and Again. The furious fight between Bai Hao's team and the Wu brothers halted all of a sudden. The ethereal god realm experts of different star areas gazed at Shang Ying and Shi Yang. As people were gazing at her, Shang Ying's face became colder. She glared maliciously at Shi Yang. "It's your fault." Shi Yang snorted and said to her, "Our agreement is on hold temporarily." A deep flame shot out from his palm, making a gentle curve in the void. It strangely turned into a flaming arm that snatched the brilliant starfruit tree. Everybody paused and wore a disdainful smile on their faces as they watched him. A starlight rippled like waves of water in the lake with fierce energy fluctuation. The flaming arm that Shi Yang had condensed was smashed. It turned into many sparks when it touched the first layer of starlight. Shi Yang frowned slightly. "If it were easy to take that brilliant starfruit tree, you think I would just stand here and watch?" MIA mocked. Her bright eyes shifted to the other four people of Bai Hao's group with a glance. "Deal with those troublemakers first." Bai Hao nodded. His team left the Wu brothers. Their cold eyes gazed at Shi Yang and Shang Yingyu. Bai Hao was surprised. She stared at Shang Yingyu for a while. He laughed strangely. Haha, you're the daughter of that slut and Leah. Hearing him, the other three warriors of the Bai family grinned. Their murderous auras rose. The Wu brothers frowned slightly. Mia didn't care. She waved her hand and said simply, "Kill them all." "Well, it's good for her if we just kill her." Bai Hao clenched his jaw as lust flashed in his face. He screamed excitedly like a duck. That slut has such a beautiful daughter. The Bai family's men should serve her well. Mia seemed to not be bothered by this issue. She just talked faintly. "I don't care about the process. I only want the brilliant starfruit tree. I won't interfere no matter how you want to kill them." The four-third sky of ethereal god realm of the Bai family laughed evilly. Their eyes sparkled like a pack of hungry wolves. The drifting fire of fantasy Miststar R and the Bai family of dry bone star area had a grudge that was deep to the bone. The Bai family killed Shang Yingyu's grandfather, but the drifting fire had also killed many warriors of this family. These two forces from the adjacent star areas had been fighting for hundreds of years, which caused the loss of many experts. The resentment between them was as deep as the sea. Once they met, they would have a bloody battle that other warriors couldn't stop. Bai Hao's team grinned fiendishly as they didn't mind the Wu brothers. They directly controlled their massive beasts and dashed towards Shang Yingyu. Thunder! Thunder! The massive blue lightning strikes shot out of Shang Yingyu's curvy body. Shortly after, countless electric snakes gushed out and filled the place where she was standing. They were frightened as they watched this scene. The giant white ape, the demonic dragon, the fighting eagle, and the python were gliding furiously like mountains with brutal and murderous auras. They roared and screamed maliciously. With one jump, they could cross several hundred meters and directly press down on Shang Yingyu's head. "I owe your father a favor." Wu Feng's eyes were cold and harsh. The fan in his hand swayed and released many rivers that were as bright as the sky. The icy cold aura filled this area. Carrying the grumbling noise of the flowing water, they all headed to the fantasy beasts controlled by the Bai family's warriors. The Bai family is indeed despicable. Wu Bai laughed crazily and arrogantly. The gold armor on his body sparkled as he violently stormed towards the others with his big hammer. The Wu brothers joined the battle on Shang Yingyu's side to deal with the Bai family's warriors. As soon as they came, Shang Yingyu felt much better. Charming Mia was indifferent. She watched the Bai family's warriors fighting the Wu brothers and Shang Yingyu, but she didn't seem to join. Quite the contrary, she walked towards the brilliant starfruit tree and she didn't even throw Shi Yang a look on her way. He had only first sky of ethereal god realm, but he dared to come and explore the ancient continent. He wanted to court death. She thought to herself. Shi Yang was also not interested in the battle between Bai Hao's group, the Wu brothers and Shang Yingyu. He knew that as the Wu brothers were giving her hands, Shang Yingyu's life wasn't in danger. It was good for him. Just like Mia, his attention fell on the brilliant starfruit tree. Seeing Mia walking towards the brilliant starfruit tree, Shi Yang didn't hesitate to glide towards the brilliant starfruit tree too. "You court death." Mia's face was cold. An intimidating gravity suddenly pressed from the sky and covered Shi Yang. Boom! Boom! As Shi Yang was gliding, he fell abruptly as if a big mountain had just knocked him down. He fell so dizzily. The furious gravity swarmed over him and pushed him on the swampy ground, making him dirty. He felt as if a mountain was placed on his shoulder that prevented him from moving. The terrifying gravity didn't stop there and it continued to rise. He felt like he was actually carrying the mountains on his back. He couldn't even wiggle his fingers. Even though Old Orchid Star was a strange star with tremendous gravity, Shi Yang could still move on that planet. However, Mia was applying a horrible gravity on him that was hundreds of times stronger. If his body hadn't been much stronger than the others at first sky of ethereal god realm, he would have been crushed in that strike. Mia at third sky of ethereal god realm cultivated gravity power Upanishad. The sudden attack she had struck in just a blink had frightened him badly. She didn't even look at Shi Yang when she took action. She just calmly dashed towards the brilliant starfruit tree, her graceful body drawing a beautiful curve in the air. She disdained Shi Yang obviously. Inside that crazy gravity magnetic field, Shi Yang's eyes were getting colder. His strong muscles shriveled shortly. His hot blood exploded. Under the urge of his demon blood, each cell in his body was shivering in thrill. An intimidating energy gushed out furiously. Shortly after, the murderous aura shot up into the sky. Boom! Shi Yang's face was pressed on the muddy ground. He got rid of the gravity field. His body was vividly red and different energies gushed out of his body, making people dizzy. Mia turned when she was about to reach the brilliant starfruit tree. She was actually surprised. Her bright eyes scanned Shi Yang as if she was studying him. "Well, you weren't smashed yet. Seems like your body has been quenched and your attainment is not bad." Mia nodded and her left hand touched the void, aiming at Shi Yang. Just like a flood gushing or a tornado wreaking havoc, the extremely fierce energy surged and made the air exploded. Along its way, the ground cracked as if it was a long sword scratching the ground and creating bottomless ditches. Shi Yang's face changed. When her small, white hand pressed down, he found that the space around him was squeezed until it was deformed. The furious energy could even be compared to a warrior at first sky of incipient god realm. The god power accumulated in Mia's body was beyond his best imagination. Unless he could transform to the immortal demon body, he couldn't withstand this attack. The energy in Mia's attack could destroy the earth though. Crack! At the critical moment, Shi Yang was as calm as a majestic mountain. The energy of his entire body was urged. His space power Upanishad was mobilized. A narrow slit with many strange lights shooting out suddenly appeared in front of him. The gush of invisible energy furiously overflowed into that slit and disappeared. Mia was baffled. She looked at Shi Yang, space power Upanishad. "Take a look." Shi Yang's face was as calm as water. However, his images suddenly shattered like a broken mirror as if he was minced by many space sabers. He disappeared shortly after. The starlight dots abruptly emerged by the brilliant starfruit tree. Shi Yang's body congregated. He had traveled 10,000 meters and crossed Mia. Shi Yang extended one hand and snatched it. Starlight emitted dazzlingly from his palm as he grabbed the brilliant starfruit tree. The starlight ripples protecting the brilliant starfruit tree didn't prevent him from touching it. He could finally grab the brilliant starfruit tree. Star power Upanishad. Mia's face became ugly. She couldn't help but shout. Bai Hao, Wu Bai, Wu Feng, and Shong Yingyu also turned around to look at this area. Bai Hao's face was restless, anxious. "Guys, goodbye." Shi Yang held the brilliant starfruit tree in one hand. His body looked like pieces of a broken mirror that radiated light. He vanished before the beams of shattered light fell on the ground. Under people's gazes, Shi Yang's body and aura disappeared completely as if he had fallen into some strange, unknown space. The two parties which had just engaged in a battle were dumbstruck. Mia grimaced as if she had just swallowed a fly. She stared at the spot Shi Yang had just disappeared and shouted crazily, "Find him! Hurry up!" The four warriors of the Bai family were startled. Even if he cultivates space power Upanishad, he can't get out of the ancient continent as he pleases. No one can do that. He must be still around. Mia took a deep breath to calm down. At most, he could only use his space power Upanishad to teleport. The distance should be limited too. Scatter and find him. She was wrong about Shi Yang. The warriors who cultivated star power Upanishad could pass the layers of starlight protection of the brilliant starfruit tree. Mia knew this. The others knew this. After Shi Yang had appeared, he first used firepower, which was prevented by the natural barriers of the brilliant starfruit tree. This move had deceived Mia. It made her assume that Shi Yang was like them. He had only the typical powers Upanishad. If she had known Shi Yang cultivated star power Upanishad, she would have never let Shi Yang approach the brilliant starfruit tree. Never. Too bad that Shi Yang had made use of her disdain and assumption. He had used the marvelous space and star powers Upanishads to break her defense and took the brilliant starfruit tree before she could react. He left without hesitating and left her with a mind full of the flame of rage. Are you guys on the same side? Wu Feng glanced at Shang Yingyu, his face dark and cold. You want to make use of our brother? At least, you should have warned us, right? No. Shang Yingyu spoke with a cold face. I also want to kill him. Shang Yingyu didn't wait for Wu Feng to answer or for Bai Hao and MIA to focus on her. She leaped and turned into a blue lightning strike. She dashed away shortly after. Go get them. Once you find them, kill them immediately, said MIA with a malicious complexion. Chapter 1107, Refine the Fruit Tree. Chapter 1107, Refine the Fruit Tree. A blue lightning strike flashed above a dark, wet swamp and disappeared in just a blink of an eye. Shang Yingyu ran rapidly. He didn't dare to stand there because she knew that there was no use lingering. Although she was arrogant, she knew that she wasn't equal to the 4 warriors of the Bai family. There was a need to mention that mysterious MIA. Wu Bai and Wu Feng shot out energy like an ignited powder keg. A flame burned in their eyes as they left the place. MIA stood by the place where the brilliant star fruit tree used to emerge, looking at the bottomless pit. Her beautiful face was so cold as if it had a layer of frost. She flung her arms and said directly, from this center spot, scatter and pursue them. That brat has only first sky of ethereal god realm. Any of you can kill him when you see him. The 3 warriors of the Bai family seemed to have ignored Mia's instructions. They only looked at Bai Hao. Bai Hao nodded and blinked at the 3 of them. He said faintly, go after them. The 4 shadows shot out like 4 rainbows to 4 different directions. In just a blink, they were out of sight. After everyone had left, Mia's eyes looked puzzled. She mumbled to herself as if something had disturbed her mind. As soon as Shang Yingyu had left the besiege of the Bai family's warrior, she disappeared. She used her special device to conceal her body and aura. Hiding inside a light case, she moved in a direction by herself. All of a sudden, she found that this light cage was spacious. She couldn't help but think about the beautiful moment that had just happened inside the light cage. Something strange flashed in her eyes, but she quieted her mind quickly. The corners of her mouth curved coldly and resentfully. While her straight thighs moved, she had traveled a long distance. When she thought that she should be pretty far away from the Bai family's warriors, she hesitated for a while before retrieving the light cage. Her beautiful figure reappeared, standing under the shade of a big tree and waiting for something. 1 hour later, a muscular man sauntered toward her with a cold face. He reached where she was but kept silent. You dare to come? Shang Yingyu bit her lower lips and said angrily. She knew that Shi Yang could recognize life energy fluctuation within a specific area, and this place was the location where they had agreed to meet. She came here and put away her invisible light cage to demand an explanation from Shi Yang. However, she wasn't so sure that Shi Yang would show himself. Why wouldn't I come? Shi Yang was holding the brilliant star fruit tree in his left hand. That exotic fruit tree radiated silver starlight, which looked like fireflies falling on his arm. It made it a drawing of starlight with fulgent sparkling. You should understand that if you hadn't struck me out of the protection, we wouldn't have been exposed. As long as we didn't get seen, I could have helped you attack the Bai family after the Bai family's warriors and the Wu brothers finished their battle. Too bad. You ruined everything. I ruined everything? Green veins bulged on Shang Yingyu's forehead. She couldn't help but shout, if you hadn't harassed me, would I have struck you? If I didn't push you out, who knows what else you would have done? While screaming, she couldn't help but remember the scene she saw when she stooped her head and caught a glimpse of his surging lower body. She grimaced as she knew that Shi Yang was just pretending to be calm. It was unexpected. Without being embarrassed or ashamed, Shi Yang said harshly, Who King would have known that your light case couldn't stand the shockwaves that badly? All right, it stops right here. Then, he turned around and left, leaving her a cold utterance. There's no way to cooperate with you. We shall terminate our agreement. You're despicable. Shang Yingyu gasped for her breath and said indignantly, You got the brilliant star fruit tree. You seized the chance and got benefits. Now you turn your back to me. What kind of man are you? I will try my best to kill the Bai family's warriors. But I won't do it with you. About the 7-colored demonic flower. I will take it on my own. You don't need to bother. Shi Yang's figure left far away and he didn't turn once to look at her. After his voice vanished, his body had disappeared completely. Shang Yingyu stood there for a long time with her cold face. She leaned against the tree and felt so bitter and resentful. Several thousand meters under a swamp with thick mud, an area was burned which made a solid, dry cave. Space barriers that could prevent soul consciousness detection and sounds were set up around that dry space. Shi Yang sat cross-legged and studied the brilliant star fruit tree in front of him. The roots, trunks, branches, and leaves of the brilliant star fruit tree looked like they were made of beautiful green jade. It felt cool in his palm. The 9 chestnut-sized fruits were sparkling like stars, releasing surging energy. Blue halos rippled, which were strong defenses to other people. If they took risks and touched the tree, they would be damaged. However, those blue halos weren't so threatening to him because he cultivated star power Upanishad. The brilliant star fruit tree was the sole altar of an incipient god realm expert who cultivated star power Upanishad. It fused with a life star after he died completely. After different experiences, it became this tree. It didn't have the soul or cognition, but the truth of star power Upanishad. The patterns on the branches, roots, leaves, and the fruits of that tree had lines like a star map. Vaguely, they were following something mysterious in the sea of stars. Shi Yang placed one of his fingers on the root of that tree. Squinting, he spun his soul altar and focused his mind and soul on the star power Upanishad. Slowly, his finger glowed and released countless starlight dots. They were glowing like small bacteria congregating in the roots of the tree. At that moment, his soul and sea of consciousness were connected to the tree. Wisps of his soul consciousness flowed like small streams coming to the vast sea. They swam in a sea filled with starlight. Countless fine, twinkling lines of starlight weaved and combined with each other and created a map of the sea of stars. Some looked like bows and arrows and some looked like screaming beasts or spoons. Some even looked like horses with wings. These images were constellations made of different stars in the galaxy. They held some meanings of nature and they could connect to warriors who cultivated star power Upanishad directly. Shi Yang's soul consciousness flew in there and felt in silence. Suddenly, his eyes brightened as he had grasped something. The star map that looks like a spoon, wasn't it the Big Dipper with 7 stars? From a distance, the Big Dipper did look like a spoon. Shi Yang felt something blooming in his mind. He seemed to grasp something. He immersed himself into that gleam of recognition while his soul consciousness moved around the brilliant star fruit tree, searching in its roots or branches. While his soul consciousness saw the mysteries of the tree, he was sinking and didn't recognize his condition. At the same time, one of the brilliant star fruits was losing its brilliance and it shriveled as if the nutrients inside were drawn away. He didn't know that his study of the mysteries of the brilliant star fruit tree required the massive energy inside the brilliant star fruit. Beams of starlight radiated from his body as the fruit was withering. It looked like he had billions of fireflies congregating at his body. They moved around and disappeared into his body in the end and turned into a beam of pure energy. Time flew hurriedly. After one fruit shriveled, another brilliant star fruit bloomed with brilliance before its light was absorbed and taken away. While he was studying the meanings of star power Upanishad, his soul consciousness seemed to move around the vast universe with countless stars. He didn't recognize it, but the brilliant star fruits were disappearing one by one. As their energy was used up, they had to return to nature. Shi Yang didn't know that. Under the swamp, he held the brilliant star fruit tree in his hand to comprehend the power Upanishad that was crucial to his life. The star power Upanishad was a strange power that was rare even in the fountainhead of powers Upanishads. Also, it was the most difficult power to advance. However, this power of his was growing magnificently. It gave him unimaginable knowledge. Staying in a small room, his body was filled with billions of starlight dots. If someone could see this, he would figure out that those starlight dots were actually forming stars of the vast sea of stars in the universe. It was a star map that was scaled several times smaller. The brilliant star fruit on the brilliant star fruit tree in his hand disappeared one by one. The branches and leaves were dried up and the roots were cracking. They all merged into the small-scaled universe and disappeared. Shi Yang was immersed in the center of the universe. He sank into the marvelous sea of stars as if he was a rigid fossil that would remain still forever. Time continued to fly. The starlight in the sky all seeped into his body and circulated in his veins, bones, marrow, blood, and flesh. They moved to his sea of consciousness and jumped into his ethereal extent. He stood still, but his body was shivering as if something was quenching his blood and flesh. Dirty water oozed out of his pores and the roots of his hair eliminated specks of dirt. His hair became glossy and dazzling while his body was covered by the silky sheet of stars, and his bones the rigid jade. This was a new transformation. The great benefit that the brilliant starfruit tree brought him was the usage of the energy of the sea of stars to quench his body, bone, blood, flesh, and his soul. It gave an excellent tonic to every corner of his body. However, he hadn't woken up yet. His mind and soul seemed to wander around the immense galaxy as if he couldn't find a way back. Right under the swamp, he had stood there for several years without knowing the situation of the world out there. The brilliant starfruit tree was a peculiar original incipient grade treasure. It was really hard to create one tree. To the warriors cultivating star power, it was a priceless treasure that existed only in legends. Shi Yang had refined the brilliant starfruit tree and absorbed its energy completely. He had understood the essence of his power Upanishad, which also increased his spirit, soul, and body to another level. He had broken the threshold from first sky of ethereal god realm to second sky of ethereal god realm. When he got up, he had reached second sky of ethereal god realm. Chapter 1108, The Five Great Territories. Chapter 1108, The Five Great Territories. The vast universe was endless with many star areas scattering in every corner. Each star area had so many stars, life stars, mineral stars, dead stars, solar stars, and moons. They were as many as sand grains in a desert that couldn't be counted. In the endless sea of stars, some influential star areas were very famous. Their reputation was well known everywhere. Legends said that when the universe had just begun, it gave birth to ancient continents first. There were 5 ancient continents in total. These 5 ancient continents were cradles of every creature in this universe. All the strong races came from the 5 ancient continents. However, as billions of years had gone by, the mighty creatures had led countless clans and races to steal the energy of earth and heaven. 4 out of 5 ancient continents had been used up. Slowly, they had to return to earth and heaven. Only 1 ancient continent stayed the same since the dawn of the universe. It was smart and cunning. It didn't release its energy generously to bear any creature. It remained its status as a maiden. It followed the rules it had set up as it had nurtured marvelous earth and heaven products. After every 10,000 years, it would open to receive a visit from other creatures. This planet had considered itself a game that people from different clans and forces had to risk their lives to gain a spot. After every 10,000 years, it would open for 10 years. Warriors who had entered this ancient continent could fight or even kill each other to take its natural products. This ancient continent became a massive playground for those warriors to train themselves. After 10 years, there wasn't even 1/3 of participants leaving alive most of the time. However, each of the survivors received the best treatment from their families, clans, or forces. Gradually, they became the leaders where their talents shone in this vast universe. Today, although this ancient continent was closed, it didn't have a moment of peace. It has been 5 years. This ancient continent had drifted from the edge of fantasy mist star area to prosaic star area. It was racing at the peripheral area and crushing the mineral stars and dead stars standing in its way like a sharp weapon that could break anything. If someone could use their eyes piercing the layers of mist of this ancient continent or hovering in the atmosphere, he could see this massive planet divided into 5 parts: east, west, north, south, and central. From a bird's view, people could see the situation of the 4 out of 5 territories. One of them was a territory consisting of an endless swamp. Another had thick and continuous glacier. Another was where dense forests grew with trees that could shade the entire sky. The fourth territory included the torrential ocean with many islets decorating it. The pieces of territories were situated in the west, east, north, and south of the continent. And the area that the four territories surrounded was a world that was covered with thick energy. From a bird's view, it looked like there was a massive ice blue bowl covering the ground and sealing the center of the ancient continent. The other territories of endless swamps, glacier, thick forest and immense seas now had many warriors from different operating star areas. However, four forces were dominating the four territories. They were slowly invading and killing warriors from the other forces. Inside the shoreless swamp area, a horde of people was walking. MIA led this group with 4 warriors of the Bai family following behind her with respect. The 4 warriors of the Bai family treated MIA gingerly and with respect. In 5 years, they had witnessed many wicked deeds of MIA. Now, they knew how this woman killed her opponents one by one. She had stirred up this entire area. Around 20 warriors at second and third sky of ethereal god realm, young and old, male and female, with gorgeous clothing and appearance, were following MIA and carrying out her orders. Bai Hao looked at those people regardless of their ages and they were all beautiful. He had more respect for MIA. It has been 5 years. We've killed more than 30 warriors of other big star areas. Still, some fish is missing. MIA was deliberate and looking to the area ahead of them. She spoke faintly, "It's almost time for the center opens. We must have precise timing. We shouldn't give those fish any chance. MIA Jejia, I believe when our 2 families join hands, we can enter the center when the seal is lifted. We can kill all those people." A teenager who looked around 18 or 19 years old at second sky of ethereal god realm said with a smile. He looked really handsome. Haig sent the news. He has cleared all the fish in the North Glacier. If we can't finish our area soon, he said he would come here and help us personally. We've lost, but we shouldn't have lost too much, frowned MIA. That Haig is a psychopath. We can't beat him. The superior has announced that he's the leader of this operation. I heard that he could use the soul consciousness to sense the creatures in this ancient continent despite the restrictions, said the teenager in fright. MIA sighed and nodded to him. Haig is a true talent. If nothing unexpected happens, he can confirm his chief position of the Bradley family after this operation. They rumored that Haig got the origin of our ancestral star. Is that true? The teenager lowered his voice. Hearing him, most of the beautiful people behind him and MIA were startled. Apparently, they were afraid of the man called Haig a lot. I heard that, too. MIA nodded. If nothing unexpected happens, he will be the leader of our clan. The Bradley family was always the strongest branch among the 12 families. Haig got the origin of the ancestral star. Who could resist him then? But Haig is chasing after you. If you can make him obedient, it's you who will hold our clan in your hand, right? The teenager smiled, his eyes studying MIA as if he wanted to observe her reaction. No woman could dilute Haig's ambition. Nobody. MIA discolored. Pausing for a while, she said impatiently, "We shouldn't talk about him. We should clean the fish that has escaped our net. We don't want him to insult our capacity when he gets here." "All right," the teenager laughed. "My Ascot family and your Fernandez family are joining hands to attack Fiery Rain Star area and Agate Star area. With the Bai family of Dry Bone Star area, we could attack them after we get out of here. The power of our 2 families will, of course, increase. Perhaps we can have the competence to compete against the Bradley family." Mia's eyes brightened. She nodded. "If we can invade Fiery Rain Star area and Agate Star area, our position in the clan will increase altogether. I hope everything will go well." "It will," said the teenager. Bai Hao listened to MIA and the teenager's conversation. He stooped and was filled with fear. He felt lucky to be with them. From MIA, he got terrifying information. The God Clan had collected most of the guiding fruits through different channels. Previously, they had almost harvested all the guiding fruits to get into the ancient continent. Each guiding fruit represented an outstanding ethereal god realm expert of the great star areas. They were the leaders and the future of the family who was especially nurtured. Sho Zhao, the Wu brothers, Shong Yingyu, and Bai Hao were outstanding characters of their star areas. Possibly, they would be the masters of their forces in the future. The God Clan had distributed the guiding fruits to the big star areas using their channels, which made the prominent clans receive the fruits. They sent their best talents to the ancient continent for precious items that people had craved for. It was a big conspiracy. The warriors of the God Clan came to this ancient continent were in larger numbers and were stronger. Families of God Clan had united to capture and destroy the future leaders of the opponent star areas this time. They wanted to kill all the future leaders of their opponents, which would shake them hard for the next thousands of years. They wouldn't even be able to recover. It would help the God Clan build a firm foundation to invade the entire Sea of Stars. And they did that. There was one troop of the God Clan in each of the 4 big territories of the ancient continent. They were killing the other warriors in their area. They wanted to eliminate all the warriors who weren't from the God Clan before the center area was unsealed. Mia and Phelps of the Ascot family brought the Bai family's warriors to perform this cleaning job. It has been 5 years. In the swamp. A group of warriors with disheveled clothes were scattered around an area where had a lot of big trees. They all looked helter-skelter. There were 10 of them from different star areas, including Wei Yifeng, Wu Bai, the Mud Statue, and even Sho Zhao. They were all outstanding warriors of the big star areas who had survived until now. Mia, Phelps, and the Bai family's warriors had chased each of them. They all had experienced bitter attacks. Most of them were killed in the bloody besiege, their bodies buried in this swamp forever. Mia's group had collected all the resources they had harvested throughout 5 years, including their lives. The lucky survivors gradually understood that they would be killed all if they scattered. People then put aside their grudges to join hands. Everybody knew the God Clan's conspiracy since Mia didn't even try to conceal it. She had told them early what she wanted them to do. They knew that they must kill all of the others. Mia enjoyed this feeling. Only we are remaining in this area. Before the center is unsealed, we will be killed. Sho Zhao had recovered from the wounds Shi Yang had given him. He had spent a lot of time to find Shi Yang. However, he didn't succeed. He had assumed that Shi Yang had been killed already by the God Clan just like many other warriors. He had even regretted a while. They've prepared to ambush us as if they knew our whereabouts. We have many people here so we could create a big commotion. But if we scatter, we will be killed sooner. Around 10 warriors grimaced while discussing. They seemed to lose their patience, but then, something exploded deep underground. Everybody discolored as grey as dust. They thought that Mia, Phelps, and the God members were hiding underground to give them the bloodiest and fiercest death. Chapter 1109. Is he really strong? Chapter 1109. Is he really strong? There were 11 survivors including the Wu brothers, Shong Yingyu, Sho Zhao, and the Mud Statue. They were from different star areas and the lowest realm warrior was at second sky of ethereal god realm. Each of them had different but profound powers Upanishad. After 5 years of having continuous raids done by the God Clan, their survival was enough to prove how strong they were. However, compared to the God Clan's warriors led by Mia and Phelps, they were so weak. It was proven after several battles that unless a miracle happened, they could never escape death. Grumbling explosions sounded underground and it tore people's calm expressions. Instantaneously, 11 warriors of different clans flew up and accumulated their powers. In just a blink, they were ready to join the coming battle. Some people's eyes flared. Slowly, they moved to the entrance that could help them dash away from this place when they had the chance. They shouldn't miss a chance. Some of them hated hiding and they didn't want to hide anymore. As they knew that the God Clan was surrounding them, they vowed to risk their lives with Mia and Phelps. Even if they had to die, they had to damage them a little bit. After 5 years, all 11 warriors in this area had experienced bitter fruits as their materials and spirit plants they had strenuously harvested were robbed and they were damaged badly. They had to run helter-skelter and hide like the mice. Some had come here with their loved ones or their comrades. However, their loved ones and friends had been buried in the swamp. They would never wake up again. MIA, Phelps, and the Bai family had assaulted them without any warning. They had robbed many things that didn't belong to them and killed so many people. As time flew, this kind of grudge wasn't diluted and it thickened. If we scatter and hide, we will be killed one by one. There will be no hope. Wu Feng had a dark complexion, his eyes raking through many warriors standing in the outer edge. He talked indifferently. Everyone here has experienced the bitter fruits from MIA and Phelps. Our family members and friends were killed. I think that even if we can't defeat the God Clan, we must do something for our deceased fellows. As some of them were trying to leave, hearing Wu Feng, they quieted down. They stood still, their eyes becoming resolute. They had recalled the situations they had to bear throughout these 5 years. This group of geniuses from different star areas had had a grim countenance at this moment. They were looking at the ground and waiting for something. Swoosh! Just like a sharp blade running through the silk fabric sheet, a deep crack appeared under their feet. Radiant starlight shot out from that crack. Everybody was skeptical. They stepped forward to look at the area where starlight was shooting out. They found that the starlight filled that crack like a sea. However, it just flashed and then disappeared. As they were still surprised, a shadow rocketed out of the crack like a meteor or the lightning strike. He emerged all of a sudden, standing by the edge of the crack in the middle of a circle of warriors. "It's you." Shuo Zhao's face was cold. The demonic insects and the toxic animals under his feet slightly rose, flowing like seawater towards the one who had just appeared. Wu Feng and Wu Bai were baffled. They frowned but they couldn't react timely. Inside the pair of cold eyes of the mud statue called Mo Fu flared a light of surprise. He shouted, "Stop it." Shuo Zhao's complexion was dark as he ignored Mo Fu's shout. He opened his mouth to spray out a grey mist, which carried thousands of toxic insects. They moved like a grey cloud covering the one who had just emerged. "Oh, you haven't died yet." Shi Yang grinned and touched his glabella. A red-orange flame flew out, falling to the center of the grey cloud of insects. Boom! 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 The smell of burning things suddenly filled the area. Many toxic insects couldn't even scream in that red-orange flame. They were burned into charcoal and smashed. Shuo Zhao snorted. He knew that it wasn't easy to kill Shi Yang. One of his dry, withered hands like a ghost claw had a crack in the palm where a round, gold-armored insect flew out. It screeched and attacked Shi Yang. The armored insect flew like a sword and rapidly entered Shi Yang's eyes. Deep inside Shi Yang's pupils, there was a sudden wonder like a vast sea of stars. However, the statuses of the sea of stars in his eyes were different. The stars in his left eye formed an angry bear while those in his right eye showcased a drawn bow. He blinked his right eye. Countless starlight dots gushed out from his entire body, creating a starlight bow in front of him. A dazzling starlight arrow flashed like a meteor. Boom! The life GU that Shuo Zhao had released, the plump armored insect got hit sent starlight sparks everywhere. It hissed strangely. Shuo Zhao's body moved as if someone had walloped him. He crouched on the ground, his chest heavy although his face still malicious. The flying armored insect didn't dare to attack more. It lay on his shoulder, hissing and buzzing continuously as if it was complaining to its master. Everybody was bewildered. They hurried to stand between Shuo Zhao and Shi Yang. At the same time, they released their powers Upanishad to create the energy barriers between them to prevent them from fighting. "You've refined the brilliant starfruit tree?" Shang Yingyu looked at Shi Yang, taking a deep breath. Her full lips twitched as she said, "Good. You've spent 5 years doing nothing but refining that brilliant starfruit tree. You've reached second sky of ethereal god realm, too. I agreed to you that I would help you deal with the Bai family's warriors. Before we leave this ancient continent, I will do what I said," said Shi Yang in a low-pitched voice. Shang Yingyu curled her lips and gave a cold smile. "Dealing with the Bai family's warriors? Was that a joke? The Bai family goes together with MIA and Phelps of the God Clan. They are approaching to kill us. Do you want to fight them? The others also looked at him with an odd face. Guys, it's my personal issue with this man. Please, don't interfere. Sho Jiao stood upright, his eyes like a venomous snake gazing at Shi Yang. Although the God clan will come here shortly, I want to kill this man first. Wu Feng and Mo Fu frowned. You can't kill him. Mo Fu cultivated the Earth Power Upanishad, so he could move freely in this swamp area. His entire body was covered in dry mud, leaving only his pair of icy cold eyes. He said directly, you can't kill him, but he can kill you. His blood qi is more abundant than yours. He's stronger than you, indeed. Although your realm is one level higher than his, you aren't his equal opponent. Wu Feng and Wu Bai were astounded hearing Mo Fu. During the recent year, they had often joined hands with Mo Fu, so they knew his origin and they trusted his keen eyes. They knew that he had a special method to assess people's real competence. In this group, although Sho Jiao wasn't the strongest, he was still leading one. Hearing Mo Fu, he wondered if the one who had just emerged from the ground had the capacity to beat him up. Was it true? For the time being, people found it hard to accept. The woman called MIA is a member of the God clan? While people were contemplating, Shi Yang's brows twitched and he asked suspiciously, well, their appearance. The God clansmen will transform in fierce battles. When they don't combat, they look more like humans. But they look much better, explained Wu Feng. Shi Yang got it immediately, turns out it's so. He didn't use his immortal demon blood, so he looked just like an ordinary man. From this feature, he was similar to the God clan, indeed. Mo Fu, is he strong? Wu Bai brought the big hammer, his voice like the big bronze bell and his face enthusiastic. Extraordinary. Considering his God power and his tenacious body, he surpasses you, said Mo Fu. Hearing him, Wu Feng, Shong Yingyu, and Sho Jiao changed their countenances. When they looked at Shi Yang again, their eyes were shining. People all knew that Wu Bai was born with the gift of strength. His refined body could be compared to metal and it carried a formidable amount of energy. In people's eyes, he was the most dominating and strong warrior. After several confrontations with the God clan, his power was proven. Today, Mo Fu told them that Shi Yang's energy and body were even stronger than Wu Bai's. Everybody was frightened by this assessment. We need his strength, continued Mo Fu. Wu Feng and Wu Bai nodded almost immediately. And they now considered Shi Yang an equal existence. No one looked down on him. Because they trusted Mo Fu. Sho Jiao's visage was still grimaced, but he didn't act rashly the second time. He quieted down and stood there with a complicated countenance. We need him, Shong Yingyu intervened. Hesitating for a while, she said earnestly, what we need from him isn't only his power. There's something more. What? Wu Feng and Wu Bai looked at her. Remember what I told you. If we can find someone, perhaps, we won't have a bad defeat in combat with MIA and Phelps. We can even overturn the situation. Shong Yingyu had a complicated look. People understood what he was saying. Half a year ago, after a defeat that cost them 3 experts, they gathered and winced, trying to find a solution. At that moment, Shong Yingyu used to tell them that if someone was still alive, they would have the hope to win. When people asked her why, Shong Yingyu said that man perhaps was killed, so it couldn't do anything even if she explained to them. Today, when she reminded them, people remembered what she used to say. They asked her the question that had lingered in their minds, why? As long as he's here, we can know everything about Mia's team including their arrangement. Shong Yingyu's look drilled into Shi Yang, throwing a heavy grenade. He isn't bound to the restrictions of the ancient continent. He can use his soul consciousness to sense the commotions around different from us who got our eyes covered like the blind. They were thrilled and they looked at Shi Yang. They opened their mouths and asked for proof. It's true that I can sense the commotion of living creatures around. Under people's hot gazing, Shi Yang nodded casually. His co-soul floated up silently from his head, dancing like a fire spirit above his head. For example, right now, they're several hundred miles away from us. They're moving toward us in a horseshoe formation. At their speed, if we don't move now, they can catch us within 2 hours. Are you sure? Mo Fu was so thrilled. I'm sure. Mo Fu looked at Shang Yingyu. He spoke the truth, said Shang Yingyu. How marvelous. Chapter 11:10. Are you all mistaken? Chapter 11:10. Are you all mistaken? At a corner of the swamp where more than 10 dispirited warriors were scattered, but all were focusing on Shiyang. Mo Fu's cold eyes suddenly had a beam of electricity. If you can observe the surroundings, I think we can take the upper hand when fighting MIA and Phelps. Shang Yingyu was the one who understood Shiyang's value the most. Seeing him appear out of nowhere, she exhaled in relief. Lately, they'd been bearing a lot of pressure from MIA, Phelps, and the Bai family's warriors. They had to live in fear. After a few days, they would receive bad news or lose their friends. Shang Yingyu used to insist on finding Shiyang. She wanted to use Shiyang's sensibility to assist people and help them out of danger. No one understood Shiyang's value more than her. It was too bad that after 5 years, Shang Yingyu couldn't find Shiyang. She thought that Mia's team had already killed him. Today, where she was in the most struggling situation, Shiyang showed up, which boosted her confidence. I don't believe him. Sho Jiao pondered for a while and then said in a cold voice while observing Shiyang with his dark face, if his soul consciousness could recognize the energy, I couldn't have escaped him 5 years ago. I don't believe him. If his wrong presumption takes all of us to the deadly road, who can bear this responsibility? He coldly glanced at Shang Yingyu and then at Shiyang. I also don't believe him. Wu Feng frowned and said to Mo Fu, I believe in your assessment of his real competence. It's not bad. But I don't think he could sense the life energy fluctuation around us. Taking a deep breath, Wu Feng talked to Shiyang with a severe countenance. I'm so sorry. We must be cautious. If you make a wrong presumption, we will be killed. Hearing him, the others also showed their suspicions of Shang Yingyu's words. Among those people was a beautiful woman. She was called Cecilia and she was a third sky of ethereal god realm warrior cultivating water power Upanishad. She wore tight green leather clothes with elegant drawings. At first glance, she looked like a graceful Nagini. She dashed like a stream of water while frowning and then stood by Mo Fu. She studied Shiyang skeptically. I understand that it's not easy to believe someone. Cecilia didn't get along well with Shang Yingyu. In her opinion, Shang Yingyu didn't have enough experience. In some operations, she was impulsive and followed her instinct. Due to Shang Yingyu's rash actions in dealing with Bai Hao, their defense broke, leading to the death of one of their experts. Thus, Cecilia had never trusted Shang Yingyu. She thought that the girl was blind because of her resentment. She could do things that harmed others in this group. Since Sho Jiao, Wu Feng, and Cecilia had doubts, Mo Fu was baffled. He slowly got his cognition. Thinking for a while, he quieted down. He looked at Shang Yingyu and then Shiyang, his frown undetectable. It's related to people's lives. If he wasn't careful, everybody could be consigned to eternal damnation. If Shiyang lied, everybody here would be killed by MIA, Phelps, and the Bai family. They couldn't afford any mistakes. Mo Fu had to be cautious. We understand that we should treat him well. It's related to our lives. We must get it proven. As long as he can prove that he has this ability, we will believe him and allow him to join us. Otherwise, let him be on his way. We don't want any unexpected danger. The ones who hadn't talked also screamed. Some of them were skeptical that Shang Yingyu had bragged about Shiyang's ability so that people in this group would allow him to join. Anyway, in this critical moment, a lonely warrior would be a prominent target and he was inevitably going to be killed by Mia's group. Only going with them and joining their group would give him a chance to survive. Besides Shang Yingyu, the other 10 warriors including Mo Fu, Wu Bai, Wu Feng, and Cecilia all looked at him and asked him to prove his ability. I will leave this area for a moment. You will show them my location to prove your ability. Under people's skeptical looks, Shang Yingyu, with her discontent, had to do that because she knew that they were afraid of making mistakes. Thus, she asked Shiyang to demonstrate his ability. All of a sudden, 11 warriors looked at Shi Yang and asked him to prove his ability to show them the direction and timing. Under people's gazing, Shi Yang suddenly smiled, his face awkward. I think you are mistaken here. Since when have I asked to join your team and help you to defend against Mia's team? You guys are a little self-righteous, eh? Mo Fu and Wu Feng changed their faces silently. Well, you guys do what you want to do. We shouldn't interfere with each other. I guess I won't see you later. Shi Yang smiled, leaving in their angry looks. Shi Yang. Shang Yingyu followed him and screamed in her low-pitched voice. We need you. Ridiculous. Your lives don't matter to me. Well, you're about to die, but you're still King skeptical. You don't know how high the sky is for sure. Shi Yang sneered, flying away like a cold, dark meteor. He didn't mind Shang Yingyu following. Mo Fu, Wu Feng and the others heard him mocking, their faces grimaced, especially Shuo Zhao. He gritted his teeth and said, we should kill him. His lies were exposed. He knew he couldn't join us, so he decided to leave. Cecilia sneered and said to Shuo Zhao, it's good then. If he leaves us, MIA and Phelps will kill him soon. Perhaps, he could seize more time for us with his death. Hearing her, Shuo Zhao laughed and nodded, if he doesn't follow us and he stays in this swamp, he will be killed shortly. Yeah, even we had to struggle hard. I wonder how long he will resist. Wu Feng frowned. They thought that Shi Yang left because he was scared. They thought that Shi Yang was embarrassed since his lies were revealed. He couldn't do anything but leave. That man has style in lying. Ha. He dared to say that Mia's team is just several hundred miles away from us and we would meet them soon. Like it's real. Wu Bai held his gold hammer and couldn't hold his laughter. We've just ditched them not long ago. How could they reach us within 2 hours? That brat lied to us. People started to discuss, but no one considered Shi Yang's words. Minutes later, Shang Yingyu returned, her face dejected. She sighed and then said, that damn brat doesn't have human compassion. Everybody looked at her and teased. Shuo Zhao wasn't trying to be polite. He wants to die. We can blame people for his decision. He left because his lies were exposed. If he dies, he's unlucky. He's just a kid at second sky of ethereal god realm. His death doesn't matter to us. Even if he can survive, he can't help us much. We should discuss how to deal with Mia's team, advised Wu Bai. Yeah, right. We should think about how to deal with MIA, said Wu Feng. No one minded Shang Yingyu's words. Under people's ridiculing, Shang Yingyu was cold and harsh. She quieted down. She knew that after Shi Yang left, whatever she told them would be just in vain. Giving them more explanations would arise more mocking. Thus, she didn't say anything but bear the irritation alone. She added this grudge together with her resentment towards Shi Yang. She thought that if Shi Yang could ignore people's taunts and cooperate with her to prove himself, she wouldn't be mocked like this. He could help them survive and he could help her to kill the Bai family's warriors. However, because Shi Yang had left deliberately, her excellent plan was broken. They couldn't overturn their damned situation. That heartless bastard. Shang Yingyu gritted her teeth and cursed. Dash. Several hundred miles away, by a clear lake where the lush blue moon grass grew, MIA, the Bai family's warriors, Phelps, and more than 20 members of the God clan were gathering. 6 God clansmen were harvesting the blue moon grass, while MIA and some beautiful ladies were bathing in the lake. Then, 3 layers of light purple light covered their area and concealed their porcelain skin. People couldn't see through those barriers. Handsome Phelps of the Ascot family was sitting cross-legged by the lake. He was holding a pentagonal crystal in his hand and taking the energy from it. Not far from him, a middle-aged man wearing silver clothes with the makings of a noble was placing his hand on the ground. His palm was the center of an electric spiderweb that expanded to everywhere. That man was called Yu Man, a member of the Fernandez family. He was an expert in searching and tracing. He didn't need to use the soul consciousness to track the opponents down. 3 minutes later, Yu Man stood up silently by the lake. A moment later, MIA flew out of the lake, wearing a long dress like a noble princess. She smiled at Yu Man, Uncle Yu Man. How is it doing? I've found the direction. They are several hundred miles away from us. I guess it will take 2 hours to get there. Man smiled gently and added, they seem to not be leaving. They've lingered there for a long time. Haha, our fortune is good. The upper limit of my searching is right within their location. If they have to run further away, I couldn't have found them. It's their bad luck, Mia said with compassion. Then, she added deliberately, well, we are going to make it worse. They hurried to gather, adjusted their conditions for a while before dashing in Mofu and Shojiao's direction. Chapter 11:11, Unvalued Little Fish. Chapter 11:11, Unvalued Little Fish, _ It was a green marsh where willow-like algae hovered on the water surface in tufts. Wisps of shining green smoke diffused from the marsh, creating a deep green cage with a sour smell. In a place that had a lot of algae, Shi Yang stood in the lake and the water reaching his waist. He lifted his head to watch the toxic green smoke hovering like fabric sheets. He couldn't help but take it in. Wisps of green smoke and mist streamed towards his mouth and nostrils. The sour and bitter poison diffused in his body. Where it glided over, his blood and flesh felt numb, his bone rigid. His blood began to be sluggish. This kind of toxic substance could paralyze his body's functions and make him lose control of his body. After a while, he would feel powerless and his god power would be drained. It was a poisonous air that could erode people's bodies slowly. A strange light flashed in his eyes. The poison-dipped cold bead hiding in his soul altar emerged on his tongue. A suction force was released from the cold black bead. Right after that, a silk fiber that couldn't be seen with naked eyes flew out from his body and entered the poison-dipped cold bead. The green water in that marsh and the toxic gas contained the deadly poisons. In this swamp area, there were so many places like this. This area wasn't far from where Mofu, Wu Bai, Cecilia, and the others gathered. It wasn't more than 100 miles away. Although warriors couldn't fly a lot in the ancient continent, to ethereal god realm experts like Shi Yang, they could fly 100 miles quickly, especially the warriors who cultivated space power Upanishad. A scorching flame flickered continually above his head, which looked like a small sun releasing shining light. The life energy fluctuations from several hundred miles away reflected in his head through the co-soul. Mofu, Wu Feng, Wu Bai, and the others didn't move yet. Perhaps they were discussing how to deal with the God Clan's threat. His soul consciousness elongated. After several breaths, his visage changed. Divine light sparkled in his eyes as he focused on observing. Shi Yang had located the accurate location of Mia, Phelps, and the Bai family. There were 27 warriors with 17 third sky of ethereal god realm experts and 10 second sky of ethereal god realm experts. This group of 27 warriors had full blood chi and robust life energy magnetic fields. Their real competence was higher than what they appeared to be. Mia was prominent in that group. Her surging life energy magnetic field could be compared to that of the warrior at incipient god realm. Her abundant blood chi wasn't less than Wu Bai's. Besides the 4 warriors of the Bai family, the rest of them were God Clan's members. Each of them was super powerful and was much stronger than other warriors in the same realm. Watching silently for a while, Shi Yang retrieved his soul consciousness, his face darker and heavier. It was much difficult than what he had imagined. His primary purpose wasn't to help Shang Yingyu deal with the Bai family's warriors. He wanted to take the 7-colored demonic flower that Mia was holding. It was his crucial mission when he came to the ancient continent this time. To recuse Yang Tian Emperor from the soul-rotting Aphis, he must use this demonic flower to awaken his mind. Shi Yang must get the 7-colored demonic flower at any cost. The reason why he didn't want to go with Mofu, Shojiao, and Wu Feng was because he had his decision. Using the co-soul, which had the same origin as this continent, he could sense any commotion around. It wasn't different from a pair of eyes that could observe many things. With this assurance, even if he didn't join Mofu's team, he could still deal with any danger. He could dodge the troop of the God Clan at any time. With the space power Upanishad, he wouldn't be defeated in this swamp. Unless he risked his life and jumped into the crowd of enemies, He didn't have any significant threat. But if he joined Mo Fu's team, he would be bound and he had to share his privilege with them without any benefit. Of course, he wouldn't do such foolish deeds that gave him nothing in return. He had planned to act alone. He would find the right chance to attack MIA and take the 7-colored demonic flower. But now, he didn't think so. This time, after sensing her energy accumulation and life magnetic field, he knew how strong MIA was. Under the given circumstance that MIA wasn't hurt, when they fought one-on-one, he couldn't gain the upper hand even if he had used all of his deeds. And now, as MIA was going with the God Clan's troop, he had no opportunity to attack her. If he showed himself, he would be killed pathetically. He pulled himself together, thinking about how to achieve his goal. After a while, his eyes brightened up. He couldn't help but sneer. If he could use Mo Fu, Shuo Jiao, Wu Feng, Wu Bai, and Cecilia, he perhaps would have a chance to take what he wanted. And he didn't care if those people were killed or not. A wisp of thought flashed in his head. He got the idea and now, he needed to develop it. He sank slowly, disappearing into the poisonous marsh. "Young lady, please hold on for a while." The elegant Yu man suddenly paused. He squatted down, placing one hand of his, which had complicated lines like a mysterious drawing, on a block of mud on the ground. However, the mud didn't stick on his slender, white hand as it was kept away by a faint halo. MIA swung her creamy hand and made a strange gesture. All the warriors behind her, including Phelps and the Bai family's warriors, halted. Everybody looked at Yu Man. Electric beams like fish swimming through the ground were released from Yu Man's fingers. They happily stormed into the ground and moved fast. Yu Man closed his eyes as lines were drawn into his brain. The surroundings were pictured in his mind with him as the center. All looked like a real photo in his brain. "There's a small fish near us." Yu Man smiled as he was surprised, pointing at Shi Yang's direction. "He has only second sky of ethereal god realm. I am guessing that he was careless, so the troop had ditched him. Haha, this man is careless, indeed. He lingers in my observing scale. I don't need to use my power to recognize him." He looked at MIA, waiting for her command. "If he's just at second sky of ethereal god realm, we don't need to send many people. We don't want to waste time, right?" MIA ordered deliberately. "By how, you guys go there and clear that fish." The 4 warriors of the Bai family in Dry Bone Star area bent their bodies slightly when receiving the order. Bai Hao took his men to leave this group. "After clearing all the fish, should we keep those 4 of the Bai family?" It was Phelps of the Ascot family talking with a malicious smile on his handsome face. He rose his hand, making a throat-cutting gesture. The Ascot family's members behind him grinned fiendishly. Apparently, they didn't consider the Bai family's warriors their comrades. "We still need those 4 watchdogs." MIA smiled gently, but her word was malignant. "We'll have to face the other families when we get to the center. Although we don't need time, they're good pawns to sacrifice. Perhaps we can use them well though." "Oh, MIA, you're so thoughtful," Phelps gave an honest compliment. "Well, you're not bad, either." MIA giggled, her eyes watery. She stretched her body in a sexy posture where her waist bent amazingly. "We should hurry to finish it." Haig sent another message. "He said he would be here shortly. He said we are too low. So we must hurry up," Phelps snorted. "I don't want to see his ugly mug." "No one wants to see him," sighed MIA begrudgingly. Everybody continued their trip, neither hurried nor slow. Dash. "We should move. They should be close to us now. We can't stay in a location for a long time." Cecilia, the Nagini-like beauty, suddenly shivered as she woke up from her meditation. Her face was a little worried. "I don't know why I'm that anxious. I feel insecure. I'm afraid that we have to pay a big price this time." Mo Fu, Wu Feng, Shuo Jiao, and Shong Yingyu jolted up from hearing her. Everybody grimaced. They looked at Cecilia with an odd countenance. Recently, Cecilia could predict many bad things. She couldn't predict good things, but every bad thing she'd mentioned came true. Everybody discolored from hearing her. They also felt strange and insecure. "Right, we shouldn't linger in one place for a long time," nodded Mofu. They have an expert who can track us down. Although it can't be compared to the soul consciousness and it takes time, they can know our general direction. People became heavy-hearted. They knew that Mofu evidently told the truth because throughout this 6-month period, no matter how hard they had tried to hide, the enemy would come to them after a short time. All right, we should go to the center and wait for its opening time. Wu Feng smiled coldly. I don't believe that they could kill all the warriors from the 4 territories of the ancient continent. As long as the center opened, we can get there. I don't think they will go after us until that time. The others were shaken. The drifting algae in the green marsh were turbulent for a while as Shi Yang stormed out of the water. Starlight sparkled on his body like a silver cage covering his entire figure. He frowned, his eyes drilling in a direction to sense quietly. Then, he disappeared from this marsh all of a sudden. His body moved like a zigzag lightning strike. 15 minutes later, Bai Hao's group of 4 appeared by the drifting algae. Bai Hao took a deep breath and said coldly, someone was here. But now it's not even a wisp of aura. He's gone. Within a short distance, they could still feel the living aura of people. Did he know that we were coming? Asked one warrior. No, it's impossible. Perhaps it's just coincidental. Bai Hao shook his head. He pondered for seconds and then gave up. We're not human. It's not necessary to chase after that one. We should go and help them. The other 3 nodded. They dashed with Bai Hao and went to their target destination. Chapter 11:12, Destroy. Chapter 11:12, Destroy. The northern territory of the ancient continent was filled with continuous glacier. It looked like a sharp ice sword jutting into the sky with a freezing aura. A group of more than 20 members of the God clan was moving. It was led by a young man, sauntering through the glacier towards the territory of swamps. The leading young man had short hair, which looked like short but sharp steel needles. A handsome face accompanied by a set of exquisite armor. His armor had the drawings of burning fires. More than 20 god warriors following him had calm auras and resolute eyes. They were like imposing mountains with abundant exploding energy that gave people a heavy pressure. The glacier, situated one after another, had buried many warriors under those people's raids. After less than 5 years, they had uprooted the so-called talented seeds of the great star areas in this territory of bitter coldness. Young master, we can cross the glacier within 3 days to get into the territory of swamps where MIA and the others are, said a stiff-faced old man wearing a beautiful robe. Haig nodded, his line of sight shooting like a lightning strike forward. He said nonchalantly, Mia's team is useless. They're the slowest team, so they haven't finished cleaning their area yet. When young master gets there, we can finish it then. Peyton smiled and delivered compliments on time. He looked at the young man with respect. It has been tens of thousands of years and the Bradley family was still the strongest family among the 12 families of the God clan. They had authority in the Elder Committee. And this Haig was the most outstanding star of the Bradley family. He was young, but he was already at 3rd sky of ethereal God realm. He was just 1 step away from incipient God realm. He got the origin of their ancestral star with years of experience in combat. His merits made people admire him. With his various personal experience, he could command the corps or train soldiers. This man had a will of steel that assisted his brutal and heartless deeds. In the eyes of the God clan's elders, Haig didn't have a significant weakness. He was deemed the future leader of the Bradley family. The chief of the Bradley family could control almost everything in the God clan or the master of the cosmos. They had nurtured Haig this way, though. Until now, he had never let them down. The operation in the ancient continent called Desolate was proposed by Haig. He also proposed himself to be the leader. The God clan had spread the guiding fruits to the star areas that were the threats to the God clan. They had revealed mysteries of the ancient continent, which had attracted strong forces sending their powerful successors to the ancient continent. Then, Haig led the elite generations of the God clan's families to join this operation of destroying the futures of the other star areas at once. This heartless, malicious plan had shocked the elders of the God clan. They had to give him applause. Many experts whose names were recorded in the Book of God of the God Clan wanted Haig to be the future leader of the God Clan. This operation, where he took the outstanding young warriors of the families of the God Clan to the ancient continent, was the last challenge for him. If he could carry out his plan successfully to eradicate all the geniuses and the future of the other star areas, he would claim the throne of the chief of the God Clan in the future without any objection. Before Haig came here, he had written a military pledge, which ensured his success in this operation. He was full of confidence. Because before he had entered the ancient continent, he had a chance to break through to incipient God realm, but he forcefully held it back and remained in ethereal God realm so he could be eligible to enter the strange planet. Since he had the origin of their ancestral star, he could ignore the shackles of the ancient continent to use his soul consciousness and find the creatures hiding in any corner. With the elite force of the Bradley family at peak of ethereal God realm and the special advantage of using the soul consciousness, the victory belonged to him. Peyton smiled at him as if he had seen the future of the Bradley family in him, or picture the beautiful image of the God Clan ruling over the cosmos. He felt proud of his family and, of course, of Haig. Remember one thing, our goal is to clear all the talented seeds of the other star areas. Haig arched his brows and said, "It's what the elders have expected us to do. We must achieve it first before we figure out how to gain the biggest benefits for our families. You have to know which are significant missions and which are minor. We can't have internal issues before we've finished the main missions." "I understand, Master," Peyton smiled. "Yeah, get going. We should reach the swamp early." Haig nodded. "Besides our territory, the other three still have some small problems. Just consider that we're going to help them extinguish the fire. It's not for them, but for us." "Young Master, I'm glad you have prioritized the whole picture," Peyton admired. The experts of the Bradley family continued to cross the glacier and approached MIA. A group of God warriors silently scattered in an area of slippery mud. They were approaching in a direction. The tips of Mia's feet touched the wet ground of the swarm slightly, floating up like a feather. She didn't say anything but continued to give gestures to make people scatter and expand their encirclement. Man gracefully led in the front to show them directions. All of a sudden, the hissing of tearing air arose from a distance ahead. Mia's face changed slightly. She called out for her warriors to halt. Shortly after, Baihao's team of 4 tiptoed and gathered by MIA. Baihao shook his head and explained begrudgingly, "They had left before we came." Mia's bold brows furrowed as she spoke indifferently. "Forget it. We should focus on the main targets first. We'll get back to that small fish later." Baihao bowed to her and showed his apology. Waving her hand, MIA winked at Phelps and asked them to move. 27 God warriors were arranged in half a circle formation. They moved further. Their targets were within reach now. If someone could hover in the sky, he would be able to see that MIA and Phelps were about to cast the net to catch fish. Their net was expanding and getting closer to Mo Fu, Shong Yingyu, and Wu Feng. Mo Fu and the others were the fish, but they didn't know that and moved at their regular speed. They hadn't recognized the threat. Between the two teams were dirty streams that were narrow and meandering like snakes. Inside one of those streams was a ghostly figure whose clothes were so clean that it was as if they weren't affected by the dirty water. He grinned and looked at MIA and Phelps. Then, he looked at Mo Fu and Shong Yingyu, who hadn't recognized the coming danger. He squinted and gazed at Shuo Jiao, who was walking in the back of the formation. The sea of stars in his eyes changed. The starlight in his body suddenly condensed into a starlight bow and an arrow in front of him. A shooting star moved like a rainbow, bringing the brutal, tearing power that could rip the sky off. Magnificent starlight bloomed in the horizon and flew with the trajectories of the stars that had connected the thick earth and heaven energy to the starlight arrow. That starlight arrow became terrifyingly sharp and it thrust in Shuo Jiao's back. The mournful whistle tore the air. Shuo Jiao's face chilled within seconds. He couldn't help but spurt out blood. The life GU insects in his blood wiggled, hissing and buzzing. They immediately aligned into the malicious formation of demonic insects that had to strenuously struggle to stop that starlight arrow. A flow of destructive energy diffused. Countless starlight dots shot rapidly. Some of them exploded right at the area where the God Clan's warriors were hiding. Many of the God Clan's warriors had to urge their powers to stop the starlight or to move away. That despicable little brat! Sho Jiao shouted angrily. Mo Fu and Cecilia had to turn their head to watch Sho Jiao. They also saw the commotions in a distance that the God Clan's warriors caused when they changed their locations. "They are here." Cecilia couldn't help but shout. For the time being, 11 fish including Sho Jiao accumulated their energy to the utmost. Just like the light arrows, they accelerated dozens of times faster and dashed forward. At the gathering point of the God Clan's members, Mia's charming face was as cold as frost. She hissed, "Get them immediately." Her line of sight was like an icicle drilling in a stream in front of her. She gritted her teeth in anger. When the starlight arrow was shooting away, she had recognized who had interfered with her business. It was the brat who had snatched the brilliant starfruit tree from her. Throughout these recent 5 years, they had moved around the swamp area and killed a lot of warriors to collect materials, but until now, she hadn't gotten anything more precious than the brilliant starfruit tree. The brilliant starfruit tree was robbed, which left a grudge in her mind. She could not forgive herself. A kid at first sky of ethereal god realm had tricked her with his powers Upanishad. He had taken the brilliant starfruit tree right in front of her, leaving her some mocking and provoking words. Each time she recalled this, she was so bitter that she clenched her jaw. It was the only mistake she had had since she had arrived in the ancient continent. She would never forget it. This time, her team had planned for a long time to kill the remaining warriors before Haig's team arrived. However, right at the critical moment, the starlight had pointed their positions and disturbed her plan in just a blink. As they couldn't form their attacking formation, their plan was destroyed. It was the second time. Mia took a deep breath. Her beautiful eyes twinkled with malicious thoughts. She hated Shi Yang deep to her bone. After the God Clan's plan was interrupted, the God warriors had to chase after the others furiously. Their formation was stretched. When Cecilia, Mo Fu, and the others scattered, the God Clan's formation had to divide into smaller groups. When Mo Fu, Cecilia, Shong Yingyu, and the others scattered, someone was going to be killed, but this kind of disbanding would save them from all being killed. As the God warriors were chasing after the others, the warriors in the swamp area were scattering like lines diverging from the same source. One team was chasing after the other. And to the originator, the opportunity he was looking for had finally come. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.